This record is supposed to end when the song does. But for some of these artists, the record was never the end of it. It was the receipt. Because a lot of these guys didn't start in the booth. They started in the streets. And the streets don't forget a name just because you got a deal, a tour bus, and a blue check. Every subliminal, every dead op mentioned, every location dropped in a verse, somebody out there is listening a lot closer than your fans are. So today we're breaking down rappers and their deadliest ops. Not the Twitter beef, not the Instagram live shouting matches. The real ones. The ones with bodies, indictments, and federal paperwork attached. We're talking Black Sam and Big U going back and forth in public. One of the most dangerous names in Los Angeles, and a whole city watching to see who blinked first. We're talking Pooh Shiesty, a man who made it out of Memphis, went platinum, did his time, and then went right back to the same smoke that was waiting on him when he touched down. Stay with me all the way to the end, because the last one on this list is the one nobody saw coming, and it's still unfolding right now. Let's get into it. Slugger T walked out of prison into a city that don't sound like it did when he left. 7 years. 7 years gone, and when he came home, the whole Jacksonville drill scene was on life support. The sound that put this city on the map, the one that had labeled scouts flying into Duval and A&Rs refreshing YouTube at 2 in the morning, that sound had gone quiet. Not because nobody was rapping, because the people who made it what it was ain't here no more. And the biggest one of them was his homie. While Slugger T was locked up, Foolio got his taco tap. He wasn't there for it. Couldn't be there for it. He found out the way everybody else in the world found out. Except he found out on the inside. In a place where you can't go nowhere, can't do nothing, can't even sit with it right. Just the news and then the walls. That's what he came home to. A dead scene, a dead friend, and a version of Jacksonville that moved on without him. And now, this little demon is back in them cars looking for get back for Foolio. Before we get into any of it, understand something about this city. Because if you don't understand Jacksonville, none of the rest of this is gonna make sense. Jacksonville is the biggest city in the lower 48 by land area. Bigger than Miami, bigger than Tampa. Bigger than most people picture when they hear Florida, because most people hear Florida and they think beaches and tourists and South Beach. Jacksonville ain't that. Jacksonville is a working city, a port city, a military city, and it's spread out in a way that keeps people separated from each other. And it's cut up. You got the north side, you got the west side, you got the east side. And inside those, you got neighborhoods that function like they're their own separate towns. Moncrief, Newtowns, Grand Park, Ribault, Sherwood. These ain't just addresses, these are identities. Where you from in Duval determines who you can be around, what streets you can drive down, what stores you can walk into, and in a lot of cases, what your music is gonna sound like. That geography matters more than people realize. In a dense city, everybody's on top of each other, and conflicts either resolve or explode fast. In a spread out city, groups can stay separated for years, build their own worlds, build their own histories, and the distance lets the grudges harden instead of cooling off. Jacksonville's got the sprawl of a suburb and the tension of a much smaller, tighter place. And that combination did something specific to the music. Because most cities that produced a rap sound, the sound came from one neighborhood and spread outward. Chicago drill came out of the south side. Detroit's sound came out of the east side. Jacksonville was different. Jacksonville's sound came out of the conflict itself. The music was the scoreboard. That's what made it hit so hard. And that's what made it so dangerous. Now, Slugger T, he's Y&R, young and ruthless. That's a north side crew, and it's got its own identity, its own name, its own thing going. But it don't exist in a vacuum. Y&R sits under a bigger umbrella. And to understand that umbrella, you gotta understand what happened in Jacksonville in the late 2010s. Around that time, a bunch of separate Jacksonville sets that had been operating on their own started pulling together under one banner. Groups that had their own histories, their own turf, their own leadership, consolidating. That banner was KTA. And within KTA, the foundational piece, the anchor, the oldest and most established faction, was 6 Block, out of Moncrief. Foolio came out of Moncrief. Foolio was 6 Block. Foolio was KTA. Now here's where people get it twisted. So let me be precise about it, because the details actually matter here. Slugger T is not 6 Block. He never was. The anchor, the oldest and most established faction, was 6 Block. out of Moncrief. Y&R is affiliated with KTA, and the Y&R brand operates as one of the pillars inside that broader network. So Slugger T and Foolio weren't in the same set. They were under the same banner pointed at the same people. And that's the whole story of how Slugger T ended up in a war that didn't start with him. Because on the other side of that line, you got ATK. And ATK is headed by Young and Ace. KTA and ATK have been going at each other for years. Long running, deeply entrenched, generational at this point. It's the central conflict of the entire Jacksonville rap scene. And damn near every artist that came out of that city in the last decade is positioned somewhere on one side of it or the other. There's almost no neutral ground. There's barely any artists who managed to stay out of it entirely. And the ones who did, mostly did it by leaving. And this is the key thing to understand. It's not a rap beef that spilled into the streets. It's a street conflict that spilled into rap. The order matters. In a lot of cities, you get two artists who start beefing over music and it escalates. In Jacksonville, the conflict existed first, and the music became one more front in it. The songs weren't the cause. The songs were the documentation. When Y&R aligned with the KTA side, Y&R inherited ATK as Opps. Not because of anything Slugger T personally did, because of where he's from and who he's with. That's how it works down there. You don't pick your enemies in Jacksonville. Your zip code picks them for you. A 16-year-old in Moncrief has a list of people he's supposed to have problems with before he's ever met any of them. And I want to be straight with you about something, because a lot of channels covering this ain't. There's a whole lot of specific incidents that get passed around about who did what to who in this conflict. Parties, shootings, retaliations, ambushes, all of it with names attached. Most of it comes to us through diss records and comment sections. Some of it has been in court. A lot of it hasn't. I'm not going to sit here and narrate accusations against people who ain't been charged with them, because that's how these situations get worse. And honestly, that's how the body count grows. Every time somebody puts a name and an incident together on a channel like this, that clip gets screenshotted and it goes right back into the city. What I'll tell you is what's structural and what's documented. Two networks, KTA and ATK, at war for years, and Y&R positioned firmly on the KTA side of it. That's the terrain Slugger T came up in. If you want the incident by incident version, there's 100 channels that'll give it to you. I'd rather give you the part that's actually true. Now let's talk about the music, because this is the part that actually matters for what happens next. Jacksonville drill hit different from every other regional drill scene, and there's a specific reason for that. It's not just vibes, there's actual craft distinctions. Chicago drill was cold, detached. The delivery was almost numb, deliberately flat, and the production was sparse and menacing. Those hollow 808s, the horror movie melodies, tons of space in the mix. The whole aesthetic was emotional distance. That was the point. It sounded like somebody past feeling anything. Brooklyn drill went a different direction. Brooklyn took the UK production template, those sliding elastic bass lines that move around underneath the beat instead of just hitting, and put New York cadences on top of it. Brooklyn drill was rhythmic. It was about the pocket. It was almost danceable, which is why it crossed over the way it did. Jacksonville drill was neither of those. Jacksonville drill was emotional. It was raw. It was guys who had lost people rapping about losing people, and you could hear it in the delivery. That strained, cracking, pushed to the front vocal that sounded like somebody about to lose it. The vocals sat way up in the mix, dry, barely processed, so you heard every break in the voice. The melodies were mournful. A lot of those beats had piano or organ in them, church instruments, gospel bones under street lyrics. That combination is why it traveled. That's why kids in Ohio and Texas and London were rapping Jacksonville lyrics word for word without ever setting foot in Florida. The specificity was local, the street names, the sets, the references only people from Duval would catch, but the feeling was universal. Everybody understands grief. Everybody understands anger. Everybody understands the specific rage of losing somebody young and having nowhere to put it. That's the thing that most people who imitate the sound get wrong. They copy the aggression and miss the grief. The aggression was never what made it work, and Foolio was the best at it. That's just the truth. Whatever you think about him, whatever side you're on, the man could make a record. He had a sense of melody that most street rappers don't have. That's rare, and it's not teachable. He had timing. He knew when to come in, when to leave space. when to let a line sit. He knew how to write a hook that lodged in your head after one listen. And he had a personality that came through the speakers, which is the hardest thing of all. He was funny, he was petty, he was charismatic in a way that made you want to hear the next one just to see what he'd say. He built an audience that was way bigger than his neighborhood, way bigger than his city, way bigger than the conflict he was in. People who had no idea what 6 Block was, who couldn't find Moncrief on the map, who didn't know a single name in the beef, they knew Foolio songs. He was the load-bearing wall of that whole scene. And I don't think anybody understood how load-bearing until he was gone. Because here's what happened after. The pipeline stopped. Think about what a healthy regional scene actually needs mechanically. It needs somebody at the top who's big enough to pull national attention to the city. One artist whose success makes the industry look at the whole place. It needs a middle tier of artists who are getting real numbers, real shows, real money. So there's a visible middle class of rappers. And it needs a bottom tier of young guys who see the path and start recording because they can see with their own eyes that it's possible. Jacksonville had all three. For a stretch around 2019 through 21, it had one of the most active regional scenes in the country. And then, in the space of a few years, it got hollowed out. Artists died. Artists caught cases. Artists got locked up on federal indictments. The top of the pyramid got knocked off, and when the top goes, the middle stops climbing, and the bottom stops starting. That's what people mean when they say Jacksonville drill is dying. It's not that nobody's making music down there. Kids are recording every day. It's that the machine broke. The ladder don't got rungs no more. A young dude in Moncrief in 2026 who's got real bars. Where's he going? Who's he opening for? Who's putting him on? Who's the local artist with enough juice to put a feature on his song and change his life? Half the people who would have done that are dead, and the other half are in a federal building somewhere. And Jacksonville ain't the first scene this happened to. This is a pattern. Chicago drill went through the exact same collapse about a decade earlier. Same shape, explosive national attention, a handful of stars, and then the killings and the RICO cases and the prison sentences, and within a few years, the scene that had every label in America flying into Chicago couldn't sustain itself. Some of the artists who survived it had to leave the city entirely to have a career. The ones who stayed mostly didn't get one. The pattern's consistent enough that you can almost set your watch by it. A scene built on documenting a conflict has an expiration date because the conflict eventually consumes the people documenting it. The music can't outlive its own subject matter. That's the trap, and that's exactly the situation Slugger T walked into. Now let's talk about 7 years, because I don't think people understand what that actually means for a rapper. 7 years is a long time in any context. In rap, 7 years is a geological era. Think about what changed. When he went in, the industry ran on YouTube and SoundCloud and getting a video on the right channel. Blogs still mattered. World stars still mattered. A regional artist broke by putting out a video that racked up views organically and then getting a cosign from somebody bigger. And that was a path you could actually see and follow. He came home to TikTok being the entire promotional apparatus. He came home to streaming payouts that pay fractions of a cent, to playlist placement being the difference between a career and a hobby, to an algorithm deciding whether anybody hears you at all. He came home to a world where the 15 seconds of your song that go viral matter more than the song does, where labels check your engagement metrics before they check your music, where artists are expected to be content creators first and musicians second, posting every day, building a personality online, feeding the machine constantly. He came home to AI voices, to snippet culture, to sped up versions and slow versions of records circulating before the original gets heard. That's a lot to catch up on. And most guys don't. Most guys come home, drop something that sounds like the year they went in, get lukewarm numbers, wonder why it ain't hitting, and quietly fade. That's the standard outcome. It's not a talent thing. It's that the world reorganized itself while they were somewhere they couldn't watch. But there's something else about coming home that almost nobody talks about, and it's maybe the most important practical thing in this whole story. Depending on how somebody comes out, parole, probation, supervised release, there's usually conditions attached. And those conditions can be brutal for a rapper specifically. Association restrictions. You often can't knowingly associate with other convicted felons. Now think about who's in a rap video. Think about who's in the studio. Think about who's on the block in the neighborhood you grew up in. A condition like that can make it functionally illegal to shoot the kind of video that made your name. Travel restrictions. You typically need permission to leave the district. That's touring. That's out-of-town shows, that's studio sessions in Atlanta or Miami. That's flying out for a feature. Every one of those becomes a paperwork problem. And if the answer's no, it's no. Curfews. Studio time is nighttime. Always has been. And then there's the big one. Your music can be used against you. Prosecutors across the country have spent the last several years using rap lyrics as evidence in criminal trials. Bars quoted in indictments. Music videos entered as exhibits. Songs used to establish gang affiliation, to establish motive, to establish that a defendant was part of a criminal enterprise. There have been major racketeering prosecutions built substantially on artists' own lyrics and social media. There's been pushback. Some states have moved to limit it. Artists and labels have lobbied against it, but it's still happening, and it happens most aggressively in exactly the kind of case a Jacksonville drill artist would be exposed to. So when I ask, what does Slugger T rap about now? Understand that's not just an artistic question. For somebody who just did 7 years and is likely on paper, it's a legal question. Every conflict bar is a potential exhibit. Every video with the wrong people in it is a potential violation. The music that would get the most immediate views is the music most likely to send him back. That's the box he's in. And it's a real box, not a hypothetical one. Now here's the flip side, and it's the reason people in Duval are actually paying attention to this one. Scarcity. There's an audience out there, a big one, that's been waiting on real Jacksonville drill for years and hasn't gotten it. Not imitation. Not somebody from another city doing the sound with the serial numbers filed off. The actual thing, from somebody who was actually there, who came up in it, who's got the credibility that can't be manufactured. Slugger T's got something almost nobody in that lane has right now. He's authentic to a moment people are nostalgic for, and he wasn't around long enough to get overexposed. He didn't drop 50 mixtapes that diluted his name. He didn't have a public flame out, didn't have a bad album cycle, didn't wear out his welcome. He was just gone, and now he's back. That's a genuinely rare position. In the streaming era, absence is almost impossible to manufacture on purpose. The whole system punishes you for not posting, and it's incredibly valuable when it happens by accident. People are curious. People want to hear what 7 years sounds like. That curiosity is a real asset, and it has a shelf life. 6 months from now, the people wondering what he sounds like will have stopped wondering. Attention like that don't renew itself. You get one window where the whole city and a chunk of the internet is leaning in waiting to hear you. And what you put in that window decides what the next 5 years look like. Now here's the question that determines everything. And I want to be honest that nobody knows the answer yet, including probably him. What does he do with it? Because there's 2 roads out of here and they lead to completely different places. Road 1 is the one everybody expects. He comes home, he picks up exactly where the conflict left off, he addresses everything and everybody, he names names, and he makes the music the scoreboard again. And I'll be real with you. That road works commercially in the short term. Conflict records get views. They always have. The audience for that is enormous, and it's immediate. He'd get numbers in the first week that a Road 2 record might take a year to build to. The problem with Road 1 is that it's got a ceiling, and the ceiling is made of concrete and headstones. Everybody who's gone all the way down that road in Jacksonville has ended up in the same 2 places. Every single one. That's not moralizing. That's just the record. Go look at the list of names that were the biggest thing in that city in 2019 and count how many are free and breathing right now. It's a short count. And add to that everything I just said about lyrics as evidence and supervised release conditions. Road 1 for a man fresh off 7 years isn't just risky in the street sense. It's the fastest available route back inside, and it doesn't even require anybody to do anything to him. He can do it to himself, on record, voluntarily. Road 2 is harder and slower, and it's the one that actually rebuilds something. Road 2 is, he uses the credibility to be the top of the pyramid instead of a participant in the war. He's got the name, he's got the respect, he's got the connection to the era people miss. If he puts out records that are about what he actually went through, 7 years of it, coming home to a friend in the ground, walking through a neighborhood that don't look the same, seeing the little homies grown up, seen which ones made it and which ones didn't. That's not soft. That's the most Jacksonville thing you could possibly make. That's where Foolio's best records were. Go back and listen. The ones that stuck, the ones that traveled outside Florida, the ones people still play. They weren't the ones about the ops. They were the ones about the loss. The grief records outlived the conflict records every single time. That's not a coincidence, and it's not a coincidence anywhere in rap. The scoreboard songs are disposable because the scoreboard keeps changing. The grief songs are permanent because the grief is. And if he goes that way and it works, the latter gets a rung back. Young dudes down there see somebody come home and win without dying for it. That's the thing that's been missing. Not talent. Jacksonville has never had a talent shortage, not for a single day. What has been missing is a survivable path. A visible example of somebody who went through the worst of it and came out the other side with a career instead of a case. I don't know which road he takes. I don't think it's fair for me or anybody else watching this to pretend we know what it's like to walk out of 7 years into that. There's people down there who expect certain things from him. There's history he didn't get to close out. There's a friend he didn't get to bury. There's probably pressure from every direction. Some of it from people who love him, and some of it from people who just want the content. That's a lot of weight to carry into a recording booth. And whatever he does with it, he's the one who's got to live with it. Not us, not the comments. But I'll say this, the reason this story is worth paying attention to ain't the beef. The beef is the least interesting part, and it's the part that already killed the scene once. Anybody can list ops. That's the laziest video you can make about Jacksonville, and there's 1,000 of them already. The interesting part is that this city produced one of the most emotionally powerful regional sounds in American rap in the last 20 years. A sound built out of real grief that connected with people who'd never been within 1,000 miles of Duval. And it got dismantled. Not by the industry, not by trends, not by the sound going out of style. From the inside. And now somebody's come home who was there at the start of it, who's got the respect to matter, and who's got a genuinely open lane in front of him at a moment when nobody else is feeling it. That doesn't happen often. Usually by the time somebody comes home, the door's already closed and somebody else is standing in it. His door is open. For now. Doors don't stay open long. So watch what he drops. Watch what he talks about. Watch who's in the videos. Watch whether the records are about where he's been or about who he's against. Because that's going to tell you real quick whether Jacksonville Drill is coming back or whether we're about to watch the same movie again with a different name on the poster and the same ending. Duval's produced too much talent to keep burying it. Hopefully this one's different.
Today, we're here to announce federal criminal charges against Eugene Henley Jr., a career criminal known as Big U, who used his contacts and leadership role in the Crips criminal street gang, the entertainment industry, and a youth charity to further his own criminal enterprise.
Black Sam just responded online after Big U got charged in connection to Nipsey Hussle's murder, and what he said is about to blow your mind. After years of speculation, the feds finally dropped a superseding indictment that connects Big U to threats against Nipsey's life. And the wiretap evidence they got is absolutely insane. We're talking about recorded calls where Big U straight up said, "I'm gonna kill him, period. I am going to murder him," about Nipsey Hussle. But here's what really went down between these two, and why Black Sam's reaction tells us everything we need to know about what's been brewing behind the scenes for over a decade. Let me break it down for you. This story ain't just about some beef between two dudes from the same hood. This is about family betrayal at the highest level, and it goes way deeper than most people realize. Big U wasn't just some random OG from the rolling 60s. This man was Nipsey's everything back in the day. We're talking about a relationship that was closer than blood, and that's what makes this whole situation so twisted. To understand how we got here, you gotta understand who Big U really was in the streets of Los Angeles. Eugene Big U Henley wasn't just another gang member. He was a shot caller, a man who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The Rollin 60s neighborhood Crips is one of the most notorious sets in LA, and Big U was at the top of that food chain. But Big U was also smart about his business. He wasn't just running street operations. He was trying to legitimize himself through the music industry. He saw hip-hop as a way to clean his money and build a legal empire, and that's where Nipsey Hussle came into the picture. Let's rewind to the early 2000s when Nipsey was just a young shorty trying to make it in the rap game. Big U saw something in him and took him under his wing in ways that most people don't even know about. This wasn't just some street mentorship. Big U literally opened his home to Nipsey. Nipsey Hussle, the future legend, living in Big U's house like family, not just staying there sometimes, actually living there. Big U set up a whole studio in his basement where Nipsey could record whenever he wanted. This man was feeding Nipsey, housing him, and giving him the tools to build his career from the ground up. But it gets deeper than that, gang. Big U used his connections to get Nipsey studio time through Suge Knight. Now you gotta understand what this meant in the context of the early 2000s hip-hop scene. Suge Knight was still a major player, even after all the death row drama. Getting studio time through Suge wasn't just about the music, it was about credibility, about being connected to real power in the industry. Big U even signed Nipsey to his label, Unique Music, for production and co-management alongside Steve Lobel. This wasn't some quick handshake deal. This was Big U investing his time, money, and reputation into making Nipsey a star. Steve Lobel was a legitimate music industry executive who had worked with major artists. The fact that Big U was able to bring him into the partnership showed that he was serious about doing things the right way. This wasn't just some street hustle. This was a real attempt to build a legitimate music business. Big U wasn't just any OG either. This man had serious credibility in the streets. He'd done time, he'd put in work, and he'd earned his position through years of proving himself. When someone like that decides to invest in you, it's not just about money, it's about honor and reputation. When you're brought up in the 60s, you're expected to show loyalty to the set and respect to the OGs who came before you. Any sign of disrespect or ingratitude is seen as a violation that has to be addressed. But here's where things started getting twisted. Success changes people, and sometimes it reveals who they really are underneath. As Nipsey started blowing up, tensions began building between him and Big U over business matters. The details are still murky, but from what we know, there was some kind of dispute over equipment at Big U's shop. Now, this might sound like small-time drama, but in the streets, respect is everything. And when you're dealing with someone who housed you, fed you, and built your career, any sign of disrespect hits different. Big U had housed Nipsey in his own home, fed him when he was hungry, built him a studio to record in, launched his entire career, treated him like family, and used his own connections to open doors. And Nipsey responded by making a song disrespecting him publicly. That's not just business beef, that's personal betrayal at the deepest level. The diss track also put Big U in a difficult position within the Rollin' 60s hierarchy. If he let Nipsey disrespect him publicly without responding, it would make him look weak to other members of the set. In street culture, appearing weak can be a death sentence because it invites challenges from rivals and subordinates. But responding to the diss track also meant potentially destroying someone he had genuinely cared about and invested in. This wasn't just some random enemy, this was someone Big U had treated like a son. The betrayal probably hurt on a personal level before it even became a street issue. Big U's response to that diss track should have been a warning to everyone about what kind of man they were dealing with. In the docuseries, Big U talked about how he tried to have Nipsey disciplined for that song. Now, for those who don't know street terminology, disciplined doesn't mean a talking to. In gang culture, getting disciplined means getting beaten down, jumped, or worse. Big U was ready to have his own protege physically harmed over that disrespect. The fact that Big U was even considering having Nipsey disciplined shows how seriously he took the public disrespect. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was about maintaining his position and authority within the Rollin' 60s structure. But it also shows the toxic nature of street culture, where violence is seen as the appropriate response to disrespect. Instead of trying to work things out through conversation or mediation, the default response is physical retaliation. The only reason it didn't happen right then was because Nipsey's brother intervened and prevented the situation from escalating. But that intervention didn't solve the underlying problem. It just delayed the inevitable confrontation. Black Sam's intervention was probably the first time he had to step in to protect his brother from Big U's wrath. It wouldn't be the last. From that moment on, Black Sam probably understood that Big U was a real threat to Nipsey's safety. Fast forward to March 18, 2011. This is the day that changed everything between Nipsey and Big U, and it's the day that shows us just how deep this beef really went. The location was near the alley at the rear of the Shell gas station at Crenshaw and Slauson in Hyde Park. This wasn't some random spot. This was Nipsey's neighborhood, his territory. But Big U rolled up anyway, ready to handle business. The fact that Big U came to Nipsey's own neighborhood to confront him shows how serious this situation had become. In street culture, coming to someone's territory is a sign of disrespect and aggression. Big U wasn't just trying to have a conversation. He was making a statement. What happened next was a complete mismatch. You had Nipsey, who was 25 years old and weighed about 125 pounds, going up against Big U, who stood 6 feet 5 inches and was allegedly a black belt in martial arts. This wasn't a fair fight. This was a beatdown waiting to happen. The physical disparity between these two men was enormous. Nipsey was a small dude who relied on his intelligence and charisma, not physical intimidation. Big U was a giant who had been using his size and fighting skills to control people for decades. And that's exactly what it was. Big U was physically overpowering Nipsey, and it was clear that this was going to be a one-sided situation. Nipsey was getting worked, and there was nothing he could do about it. Witnesses described the scene as brutal. Big U wasn't just trying to win a fight, he was trying to humiliate Nipsey and send a message about what happens when you disrespect him. This was about dominance and control, not just settling a dispute. This is where Black Sam enters the story as the hero. According to eyewitnesses, Samuel Asghedom, that's Black Sam's real name, saw his little brother getting beaten down and wasn't having it. He pulled out a gun and fired shots into the air to end the conflict. Now, this wasn't Black Sam trying to shoot anybody. He was firing warning shots to break up the fight and save his brother from getting seriously hurt. But when you're in the hood and shots are fired, everything changes real quick. Black Sam's decision to fire warning shots was probably the only thing that saved Nipsey's life that day. Big U was clearly in control of the fight, and there's no telling how far he would have taken it if Black Sam hadn't intervened. But firing those shots also put Black Sam at serious legal risk. In California, discharging a firearm in public is a serious crime, even if you're not trying to hurt anyone. Black Sam knew he was probably going to get arrested, but he did it anyway to protect his brother. Here's where things got really crazy. One LAPD officer returned fire, shooting at Black Sam but missing completely. The police are claiming that Black Sam pointed his gun at the officers, but witnesses say he was just shooting in the air to stop the fight between his brother and Big U. The whole situation turned into chaos. You had Black Sam firing warning shots, LAPD shooting at Black Sam, and everyone scrambling to figure out what was happening. The LAPD detained 5 people that day, but they only charged Black Sam with assault with a deadly weapon. The fact that Big U wasn't charged with anything that day is telling. Despite being the aggressor who came to Nipsey's neighborhood and started a fight, he walked away without any legal consequences. Meanwhile, Black Sam, who was trying to protect his brother, got arrested and charged with a felony. From that day forward, Big U had it out for Nipsey in ways that we're only now starting to understand. The new federal indictment reveals that Big U has been plotting against Nipsey for years, and the evidence they have is absolutely damning. This obsession would manifest in years of threats, intimidation, and plotting that ultimately created the toxic environment that led to Nipsey's death. Even if Big U didn't pull the trigger himself, his years of threats and hostility contributed to a culture where violence against Nipsey was normalized. The feds dropped a superseding indictment that paints Big U as a violent shot caller who was obsessed with maintaining control through fear and intimidation. But the most shocking part is what they caught him saying about Nipsey on recorded phone calls. The federal government has been building this case against Big U for years, using sophisticated surveillance techniques to gather evidence of his criminal activities. The wiretap evidence they collected reveals a man who was completely consumed by his need for control and respect. In one episode detailed in the indictment, Big U discusses disciplining a fellow Rollin' 60s member identified as OG Crip Cuz. He claimed he had this man beaten for perceived disrespect and warned that he could have had him killed instead. But then he allegedly recounted a dispute involving Nipsey Hussle and other neighborhood figures. Here's the exact quote that prosecutors are using. Big U boasted that if things had gone differently, he would have had a problem with any man, and the issue would have been resolved and he wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't be here. Prosecutors are citing this as evidence of how Big U linked his status to life or death decisions. This man was literally talking about killing people, including Nipsey, as a way to maintain his position in the streets. The language Big U used is particularly chilling because it shows how casually he talked about murder. This wasn't someone making threats in the heat of the moment. This was someone who had thought through the logistics of killing people and was comfortable discussing it on the phone. But the most damning evidence comes from wiretapped phone calls that the feds recorded. On December 31st, 2022, more than 3 years after Nipsey was murdered, Big U was still talking crazy about him on the phone. On this intercepted call, Big U said that he was bigger than deceased rapper Nipsey Hussle, that he disciplined Nipsey Hussle, and that he was bigger than any other Rollin' 60. Think about that for a second. Nipsey had been dead for over 3 years, and Big U was still on the phone bragging about being bigger than him and talking about how he disciplined him. That's not normal behavior. That's the behavior of someone who's obsessed. This obsession probably consumed Big U's thoughts and influenced his actions for years. Instead of focusing on building his legitimate businesses or enjoying his success, he was still fixated on proving that he was more important than Nipsey. But the January 1st, 2023 call is where Big U really showed his hand. On this intercepted call, Big U said that he was not beefing with Nipsey Hussle because, and I quote, "If anyone beefs with Big U, I'ma kill him, period. I am going to murder him." The hunter terminology is particularly disturbing because it suggests that Big U saw himself as a predator and other people as prey. This isn't the language of someone who uses violence defensively. This is the language of someone who actively seeks out opportunities to harm others. Additional wiretap evidence shows Big U threatening to mess up a South LA business after employees refused him a discount. He was also recorded talking about hanging out in rival Grape Street territory while saying he could kill every day. These statements show that Big U's violent tendencies weren't limited to his beef with Nipsey. He was threatening violence against random business employees and rival gang members on a regular basis. This was a man who saw violence as his primary tool for getting what he wanted. Prosecutors say he bragged about always having 2 blowers, that's street talk for guns, and being able to pay others to carry out assaults. This man was running a whole criminal enterprise based on violence and intimidation, and the fact that he was paying others to carry out assaults is particularly significant because it shows that Big U had the resources and connections to have people killed without directly participating in the violence himself. What the feds are showing us is that Big U's threats against Nipsey weren't isolated incidents. This was part of a larger pattern of using violence and intimidation to control people and situations. The superseding indictment details how Big U would blend direct violence with outsourced muscle. He wasn't just threatening people himself. He was paying others to carry out assaults and maintaining a network of people who would do his dirty work. This is important because it shows that Big U had the means and the motivation to have Nipsey killed, even if he didn't pull the trigger himself. When you're running a criminal enterprise like this, you don't have to be the one holding the gun to be responsible for the murder. The federal RICO statute is specifically designed to prosecute people who run criminal organizations, even if they don't personally commit every crime. If prosecutors can show that Big U was running an enterprise that used violence and intimidation, they can hold him responsible for all the violence committed by that enterprise. Now, when Black Sam responded online to news of Big U's charges, he wasn't just reacting to some random legal development. This man has been living with the knowledge of what Big U was capable of for over a decade. What we're seeing here isn't just about one beef between 2 people from the same neighborhood. This is about how toxic masculinity and street politics can destroy families and communities. Big U took Nipsey in as family, gave him everything he needed to succeed, and then turned into his biggest enemy when Nipsey tried to assert his independence. That's not mentorship, that's control and manipulation. The fact that Big U was still talking about Nipsey on wiretapped calls years after his death shows that this obsession ran deep. This wasn't just business. This was personal, and it was deadly. This case also highlights the broader problem of how street culture can corrupt legitimate business relationships. Big U and Nipsey could have built something amazing together if they had been able to resolve their differences through communication and compromise instead of violence and intimidation. Now, it's important to note that the federal government isn't charging Big U directly with Nipsey's murder. That case was already prosecuted in state court, where Eric Ronald Holder Jr. was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. But what the feds are doing is showing a pattern of racketeering, intimidation, and control that includes threats against Nipsey's life. They're building a case that Big U was running a criminal enterprise, and that his threats against Nipsey were part of that enterprise. The superseding indictment adds new overt acts that show Big U using fear to tighten his grip on the LA streets and on wealthy clients. This includes the threats against Nipsey, but it goes much broader than that. Federal RICO cases are incredibly complex and can take years to build. The fact that prosecutors are now confident enough to include the Nipsey threats in their indictment suggests that they have overwhelming evidence of Big U's criminal activities. According to court transcripts analyzed by YouTuber Abdul Aziz, Big U's extortion ring was incredibly profitable when it was booming. He was squeezing serious money out of people who were scared of the violence and consequences of not dealing with him. The extortion operation probably targeted successful people in the entertainment industry who had connections to the streets but were trying to go legitimate. These people would be vulnerable to threats because they couldn't go to the police without exposing their own criminal background. But what's crazy is how reckless Big U was being on these wiretapped calls. He was talking crazy about Nipsey, about other Rolling 60s members, about his own associates. He was calling people rats and snitches, bragging about being a hunter and threatening to murder people. For someone who was supposedly the head of such a sophisticated criminal enterprise, the fact that he was talking this openly on the phone is baffling. Most street-level criminals know better than to discuss illegal activities on the phone, but Big U was out here confessing to federal crimes on recorded lines. This recklessness probably contributed to his downfall. If he had been more careful about his communications, the federal government might never have been able to build such a strong case against him. There's also evidence that Big U's drug operation was causing problems for Nipsey even before their personal beef escalated. According to Al Prophet's analysis, Big U was allegedly running drugs through tour buses, using a travel agency as a front. This is why Nipsey's tour bus kept getting pulled over by police. They were looking for drugs because of Big U's operation, and Nipsey was getting caught up in the investigation even though he wasn't involved in the drug trafficking. The drug operation probably put additional strain on their relationship because Nipsey was trying to build a legitimate music career, but Big U's illegal activities were creating problems for him. Every time Nipsey's tour bus got pulled over, it created negative publicity and legal risks that could have destroyed his career. There were even reports of Mexican cartel members trying to kill Nipsey at a concert in Chicago, possibly because Big U owed money for drugs and they couldn't find him. So they targeted Nipsey as a way to hurt the Rolling 60s and send a message to Big U. This shows how Big U's criminal activities created danger for everyone around him, including people who weren't involved in his illegal operations. Nipsey was trying to distance himself from street activities, but Big U's actions kept pulling him back into dangerous situations. What this whole situation shows us is how one person's criminal activities can destroy entire communities and families. Big U's need for control and respect led to a cycle of violence that ultimately cost Nipsey his life. Even if Big U didn't directly order Nipsey's murder, his years of threats and intimidation created an environment where violence against Nipsey was normalized. When you spend years talking about killing someone, eventually someone might take you seriously. The tragedy is that both Big U and Nipsey had the potential to be positive forces in their community. Nipsey was already doing amazing work with his community development projects and his efforts to bring economic opportunity to South LA. Big U had the connections and resources to support those efforts instead of undermining them. As of now, Big U is facing serious federal RICO charges that could put him away for life. The wiretap evidence is damning, and the pattern of violence and intimidation that prosecutors are laying out is comprehensive. There are rumors that Big U might represent himself in court, which would be a huge mistake given the complexity of federal RICO cases. But given how reckless he's been on recorded phone calls, it wouldn't be surprising if he made more bad decisions. The trial is expected to happen in the coming months, and it's going to reveal even more details about the criminal enterprise that Big U was allegedly running. We might finally get answers to questions that have been haunting the hip-hop community for years. At the end of the day, this story is about more than just Big U and Nipsey. It's about how the streets can corrupt even the closest relationships, and how toxic masculinity and the need for control can destroy everything good in a person's life. Big U had the opportunity to be remembered as the man who discovered and nurtured Nipsey Hussle. Instead, he's going to be remembered as the man who threatened to kill him and possibly played a role in creating the environment that led to his death. Black Sam's reaction to these charges tells us everything we need to know. This man has been carrying the weight of his brother's death for years, knowing that there were people out there who wanted to hurt Nipsey and might have played a role in his murder. Now, finally, the federal government is taking action against Big U and his alleged criminal enterprise.
RICO charges against Mr. Henley and his associates reflect a pattern of crimes that runs the gambit from extortion to robbery to murder to tax fraud and to human trafficking, all under the umbrella of a well-organized criminal organization led by Mr. Henley.
It won't bring Nipsey back, but it might provide some measure of justice for a man who was taken from us way too soon. The marathon continues, but the people who tried to stop it are finally being held accountable. And that's something that Black Sam and all of us who love Nipsey can take some comfort in. Rest in peace to Nipsey Hussle, and prayers up for Black Sam and the whole family as they continue to seek justice for their brother. The truth is finally coming to light, and Big U's days of terrorizing people are numbered.
I remember when Shiesty said, "Nah, he ain't dead, but I got niggas in the Fed smoking Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, Tunchi," he said, "Yo niggas in the Fed smoking Tunchi. Y'all know Nooski."
BEO Lil Kenny just crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. In his latest track, he dropped the most disrespectful bars Memphis has heard in years. "You got people in the Fed smoking Tunchi. I got people smoking Nusky." That bar ain't just aimed at Pooh Shiesty. It's a direct attack on his dead family member, turning Big Nusky's name into a smoking reference that has the entire Memphis hip-hop scene in chaos. With over 3 million streams in 72 hours and death threats flooding social media, this beef just became something way more serious than music. Pooh Shiesty was Memphis royalty, 1017 records, platinum plaques, and respect from New York to California. But in Memphis, your streaming numbers don't matter when someone disrespects your dead family on a track. Kenny's Smoking Nusky bar represents everything dangerous about Memphis hip-hop right now. Where grief gets weaponized, where family names become punchlines, and where crossing certain lines means there's no going back. This isn't just rapper versus rapper anymore. This is paper route empire versus CMG loyalty, federal time versus street credibility, and family honor versus musical clout. To understand why Kenny would risk his career and possibly his life to drop that bar, we gotta dive deep into the street politics, family connections, and territorial wars that make Memphis hip-hop different from anywhere else in the country. Memphis hip-hop operates under rules that don't exist in other cities. This ain't Atlanta, where artists can switch camps for better deals. This ain't Los Angeles, where geography creates natural boundaries. Memphis is small enough that everyone knows everyone's business, but divided enough that the wrong association can end everything you've worked for. The city splits into distinct territories with their own codes, crews, and political systems. North Memphis runs different from South Memphis. East Memphis and West Memphis might as well be different states. Each neighborhood has its own artists, its own sound, and its own version of who's friend and who's enemy. When Young Dolph built Paper Route Empire, he wasn't just creating a record label, he was establishing a political movement. PRE represented independence, keeping Memphis money in Memphis, and never bowing down to outside industry politics. Artists who signed with Dolph weren't just getting recording contracts. They were joining a philosophy that said Memphis could compete without compromising its identity. But that independence came with serious consequences. When you rep PRE, you automatically inherit Dolph's conflicts. Every enemy he made became your enemy. Every territory he couldn't enter became off limits to you. Every beef he had with other labels became your problem to navigate. B.O. Lil Kenny understood this from day one. Growing up in Memphis, he watched promising artists get blacklisted for working with the wrong producers. He saw careers destroyed because someone got too friendly with rival camps. He learned that in Memphis hip-hop, your neighborhood loyalty matters more than your talent, and your street credibility determines your ceiling more than your streaming numbers. The Paper Route Empire connection gave Kenny instant credibility, but it also painted a target on his back. When Dolph got killed, every pre-artist became a suspect in the court of street opinion. When investigations started, every PRE affiliate became someone worth watching. Kenny's legal situation became more complicated simply because of his label affiliation. Big Nusky wasn't just another Memphis rapper trying to make it. Born Kevon Bruce, he was family to Pooh Shiesty, connected to the Bread Gang through Moneybagg Yo, and caught in the middle of Memphis street politics before he ever stepped in a studio. Nusky's story represents everything tragic about Memphis hip-hop culture. He spent 4 years locked up starting when he was 14, missing crucial development years but gaining street credibility that you can't manufacture. When he got out at 18, Memphis had changed, but the game was still the same. Talent plus connections plus survival equals maybe making it out. In his last interview with Wicked Films, Nusky broke down the reality of coming up in Memphis, the city full of haters. Dudes will act like your big brother until you start getting more money than them. Then they start spreading rumors and throwing dirt on your name. That interview shows a young man trying to balance authenticity with ambition. Nusky talked about staying focused on his music, avoiding drama, and not letting street politics derail his career. But in Memphis, you don't always get to choose which politics find you. His connection to Moneybagg Yo opened doors that most Memphis artists never see. Bread Gang wasn't just a label, it was a stamp of approval from one of the city's biggest success stories. When Moneybagg pulled up with over $700,000 cash that day, he wasn't just stunting, he was showing Nusky what was possible if he stayed focused and made the right moves. But Nusky's family connection to Pooh Shiesty complicated everything. Shiesty was 1017, which meant Gucci Mane, which meant Atlanta politics mixing with Memphis street codes. When you're family to a platinum artist, every move you make gets analyzed. Every song you drop gets compared. Every association you have reflects on their brand. The night Nusky died, January 28, 2022, outside New Horizon River Apartments in Whitehaven, changed Memphis hip-hop forever. According to police reports, he was shot multiple times and pronounced dead at the scene. No arrests were made, no suspects were officially named. But in Memphis, the streets started calculating immediately. BEO Lil Kenny's position in Memphis hip-hop was already complicated before Nusky died. As a Paper Route Empire artist, he represented everything that CMG and Bread Gang opposed: independence, territorial pride, and refusing to play by industry politics. His legal victories, beating serious charges that could have ended his career before it started, gave him street credibility that money can't buy. In Memphis hip-hop, an artist who can beat a murder case isn't just lucky, he's dangerous. That kind of reputation opens doors, closes mouths, and makes other artists think twice before testing you. Kenny's legal success became part of his artistic identity, referenced in his music and respected in the streets. But it also made him a target for speculation. When you're known for beating cases, every unsolved situation in the city gets your name mentioned. Every time something happens, people wonder if you were involved. Your success becomes evidence against you in the court of street opinion, and your victories become reasons for enemies to want you gone. Kenny's music during this period reflected his complicated position. Tracks with other PRE artists showed he wasn't just signed to the label. He was deep in the politics. When he rapped about legal victories, street credibility, and territorial loyalty, fans knew he wasn't talking about hypothetical situations. In Memphis hip-hop, the music is always autobiographical, and Kenny's autobiography was getting more dangerous with every release. The street response to Kenny's rise told its own story. Artists who used to collaborate with him started keeping distance. Producers stopped sending beats to avoid political complications. Show promoters in certain parts of Memphis stopped booking him, not because of his talent, but because of the politics his presence brought. Meanwhile, Pooh Shiesty was dealing with federal time, unable to respond to any developing situations or protect his interests in Memphis street politics. When you're locked up, every day you're away is a day your enemies can make moves without consequences. Kenny's growing reputation was happening while Shiesty couldn't do anything about it. Then came the bar that changed everything. You got people in the feds smoking Tunchi. In hip-hop culture, smoking someone means celebrating their death, usually by naming a strain of marijuana after them as the ultimate disrespect. When Kenny said, "I got people smoking Nusky," he wasn't just making a lyrical reference. He was claiming that people in his circle were celebrating Big Nusky's death, turning his name into a joke and disrespecting his memory for musical clout. The line is calculated cruelty. Kenny knows exactly who Nusky was to Pooh Shiesty. He knows the family connection, the emotional weight, and the street politics involved. By turning Nusky's name into a smoking reference, Kenny wasn't just dissing Pooh Shiesty. He was attacking his grief, his family loyalty, and his ability to protect his people's legacy. The Tunchi reference adds another layer of disrespect. Tunchi likely refers to someone close to Pooh Shiesty who's currently incarcerated, meaning Kenny is saying that while Shiesty's people are locked up getting high in federal prison, Kenny's people are celebrating Nusky's death in the streets. This kind of bar goes beyond typical hip-hop beef into something much more serious. When you diss someone's dead family member by name, especially in a city like Memphis, where family loyalty is everything, you're not just making music anymore, you're declaring war. The immediate response to the bar showed how serious Memphis took it. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from shock to death threats. Artists who usually stay neutral in rap beef started choosing sides. Fans began organizing boycotts and support campaigns. Local radio stations had to decide whether playing the song was worth the political consequences. Right now, Memphis hip-hop is split down the middle, and that smoking Nusky bar is the dividing line. You got artists publicly supporting Kenny, showing pre-A loyalty even when it might hurt their careers. Others are staying completely silent, waiting to see how this plays out before revealing their positions. And a growing number are actively supporting Pooh Shiesty despite him being locked up and unable to immediately respond. The streaming numbers tell a complicated story. Kenny's track is doing massive numbers, but so are Pooh Shiesty's catalog songs as fans show support for both sides. Playlists have become weapons,
with fans using their streaming power to push their chosen artist while trying to bury the opposition. Instagram comment sections have turned into war zones where people argue about everything except the actual music. Local radio stations in Memphis are caught in an impossible position. Play Kenny's track and you're essentially endorsing the disrespect of a dead young man and taking sides in serious street politics. Don't play it, and you're missing out on one of the biggest Memphis hip-hop stories of the year while potentially alienating PRE supporters. The clubs and venues are feeling the pressure too. Promoters who book Kenny can't book certain other artists without risking problems. DJs who spin his music at parties in certain neighborhoods are creating dangerous situations. Even strip clubs, traditionally neutral territory in Memphis hip-hop politics, are having to make choices about whose music they play and when. The business implications are staggering. Record labels are watching closely to see how this affects their Memphis investments. PRE's response to Kenny's controversial bar will determine how the label moves forward without Dolph's leadership. CMG and Bread Gang's handling of the Pooh Shiesty situation affects their entire roster's relationships and collaboration possibilities. The Smoking Nooski bar isn't just affecting artists and industry politics, it's impacting real families who are still grieving real loss. Big Nuski's family members, who are already dealing with the trauma of losing someone young to violence, now have to watch his name get disrespected in a song that's streaming millions of times. For Pooh Shiesty's family, Kenny's bar represents the worst kind of attack. Someone using their grief as ammunition for musical clout. When you're locked up and can't protect your people's legacy, watching someone turn your cousin's name into a punchline creates a level of anger that doesn't disappear when the song stops playing. The psychological impact on the Memphis community is real too. Young people who looked up to Big Nusky as an example of someone trying to make it out through music are now seeing his death treated as entertainment. The message being sent is that even after you're gone, your name can be used against your family for someone else's career advancement. Community leaders in Memphis are struggling with how to address the situation. You got parents trying to explain to their kids why someone would diss a dead person's name. You got teachers dealing with students who are taking sides in a beef they don't fully understand. You got counselors working with young people who are processing grief and anger through music that celebrates death. Behind all the street politics and family emotions, there's serious money involved in this beef. Kenny's controversial track has generated more revenue in 2 weeks than some of his previous releases made in months. Controversy sells, and Memphis hip-hop controversy sells especially well because fans know the emotions and conflicts are completely real. Record labels are doing complex calculations about the cost versus benefit of supporting artists involved in this level of controversy. Kenny's streaming numbers are impressive, but the potential legal, security, and public relations costs are significant. Insurance companies are adjusting coverage for artists involved in public beefs that reference real deaths and family members. The touring implications are massive. Kenny's ability to perform in certain cities and venues is now complicated by security concerns and political affiliations. Festivals that might have booked him are reconsidering based on the controversy. International opportunities could be affected by the perception that he celebrates violence. Streaming platforms are dealing with their own complications. The song is generating massive engagement and revenue, but it's also creating controversy about their role in amplifying content that disrespects victims of violence. Playlist curators are having to decide whether including the track is worth the potential backlash from community groups and family members. Kenny's Smoking Nusky bar represents everything complex about modern hip-hop authenticity. On one hand, the bar is completely real. He's expressing genuine feelings and real street politics through his art. The emotions behind the disrespect are authentic, even if the expression is cruel. On the other hand, the bar shows how the pressure to be authentic in hip-hop can push artists into saying things that hurt real families and communities. When being real means celebrating someone's death for musical credibility, the culture has reached a point where authenticity conflicts with basic humanity. This creates impossible choices for fans, especially young people in Memphis, who relate to the street politics but also understand the pain of losing family members to violence. Supporting Kenny's music means endorsing the disrespect of someone's dead relative. Not supporting it might mean being seen as disloyal to PRE or soft in street politics. The impact on Memphis hip-hop culture will be long-lasting. Future artists are learning that family members' deaths can become content for musical beef. Grieving families are seeing that their loss can be weaponized by their loved ones' enemies. The line between artistic expression and human decency is getting blurred in ways that will affect the culture for years. While Kenny's Smoking Nusky bar dominates streaming platforms and social media discussions, everyone is waiting for Pooh Shiesty's response. But his situation is more complicated than just writing bars and recording a track. First, he's dealing with federal time, which means any response he makes will be scrutinized by authorities looking for evidence of criminal activity or gang affiliation. Responding too aggressively could affect his legal situation and potential release date. Second, he's responding to someone who disrespected his dead family member, which means the emotional stakes are higher than normal rap beef. Whatever he says has to address the smoking Nusky bar while honoring his cousin's memory and satisfying his family's need for justice. Third, his response will set the tone for Memphis hip-hop politics going forward. How he handles this disrespect will determine how other artists can treat family members' deaths in future conflicts. If he responds with devastating bars but no escalation, he might establish new boundaries. If he escalates beyond music, he could trigger consequences that affect everyone in Memphis hip-hop. The technical challenge is creating a response that's lyrically superior to Kenny's track while addressing the specific disrespect without giving authorities evidence they could use against him. Federal inmates' phone calls and communications are monitored, so even planning his response creates legal complications. The resolution of this beef will determine the future of Memphis hip-hop culture for the next generation. If Kenny's smoking Nusky bar becomes acceptable within the scene, it opens the door for other artists to weaponize grief and family loss in similar ways. Dead family members could become regular content for musical conflicts. If the response from the community and other artists is strong enough to establish that certain lines can't be crossed, it might create new boundaries that protect grieving families from having their loss turned into entertainment. The Memphis hip-hop community has the power to decide whether celebrating someone's death becomes normalized or remains beyond acceptable limits. The business implications will shape how labels sign and develop Memphis artists. If controversy-generating bars like Kenny's prove profitable regardless of their human cost, labels might encourage similar content. If the backlash affects long-term career prospects, the industry might develop new guidelines about content that references real violence and family deaths. Young artists coming up in Memphis are watching closely to see what consequences Kenny faces for crossing this line. If his career continues growing despite the smoking Nusky bar, they're learning that disrespecting dead family members is an acceptable path to success. If he faces serious professional or personal consequences, they're learning that some lines shouldn't be crossed regardless of the potential benefits. The next generation of Memphis hip-hop will be shaped by how this conflict resolves. The culture will either normalize celebrating enemies' deaths or establish that family grief deserves protection, even in the most serious beef. That decision will affect Memphis hip-hop identity and authenticity for decades to come. BAO Lil Kenny's smoking Nusky bar has created a moment that transcends music and enters the realm of community values, family respect, and cultural boundaries. The response from Pooh Shiesty, the Memphis hip-hop community, and the broader culture will determine whether artistic authenticity includes the right to weaponize other people's grief for musical success.
A PRE affiliate, somebody who actually rides for Young Dolph's legacy, found out that Hernandez Govan was on Instagram Live, and he pulled up. Like physically showed up to fight this man on site. No warning, no debate, just boom. And the video is going viral right now. His name is Sifastalia Sammy on Instagram, and he went and did what a lot of people been wanting to do for years. But here's what I really need y'all to understand before we get into that clip. Because if you don't know the full story of who Hernandez Govan is, what the police said he did, how he beat the case, what happened when he got out, and what happened to his own daughter, then you are not ready for how deep this whole situation goes. So stay locked in, because this is going from start to finish, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that pull-up happened and why nobody in PRE's camp is losing any sleep over it. Let's get into it. Alright, so for those who don't know, and I know some of y'all are new here, welcome to the channel, gang. We gotta go back. We gotta go back to November 17, 2021. That date should mean something to anybody who was rocking with Memphis rap. Anybody who was a real fan of the culture. That's the day Young Dolph was killed. Shot and killed inside Makeda's homemade butter cookies in Memphis, Tennessee. A place he used to go to all the time. A community spot. And I mean, the whole world felt that. Dolph wasn't just a rapper, he was a whole movement. Paper route empire, independent, he built something real. He inspired a whole generation of artists to own their masters, own their brand, move on their own terms. And somebody took that from the world. That's the foundation of everything we're talking about today, so never forget that part. Now, two names came up immediately when law enforcement started investigating this murder. Justin Johnson, also known as Straight Drop, and Cornelius Smith, those were the two individuals who were charged with actually pulling the trigger with being the shooters. And those cases have been well documented. People know about them. But then there was a third name, a name that maybe didn't get as much attention in the mainstream, but in Memphis and in the streets, people knew exactly who this was. That name was Hernandez Govan. And this is where it gets real interesting, gang, because Hernandez Govan wasn't charged as a shooter. He wasn't alleged to be the one who walked in that store. What law enforcement alleged, and I want to be clear, these are allegations, this is what the prosecution put forward, was that Hernandez Govan played a specific role in the conspiracy that led to Young Dolph's death. The police and prosecutors alleged that he was part of the planning, part of the coordination. What they specifically alleged was that Hernandez Govan was involved in the procurement of the car, the vehicle, the white Mercedes that was used in the murder. That's what they said, that he helped facilitate getting that car to the people who would use it. Now think about that for a second, because in the eyes of the law, if you are part of a conspiracy to commit murder, if you help plan it, if you help provide the tools, if you play any coordinated role, you can be held just as responsible as a person who pulled the trigger. That's how conspiracy law works in this country. It doesn't matter if you were miles away. It doesn't matter if you never touched a weapon. If you were part of the plan, prosecutors can come at you just as hard. And that's exactly what they tried to do with Hernandez Govan. He was arrested, he caught a charge. And at the time, the community was paying attention. People were watching this case because this was Dolph we were talking about. This wasn't just some random case. This was one of the most beloved figures in Southern rap culture, and people wanted everybody involved to be held accountable. So how did Hernandez Govan end up beating it? Because y'all, he did. He beat the case, and that's the part that had people in their feelings for a long time. Here's what happened. The prosecution's case against him was largely built on the conspiracy angle, the idea that he was a knowing and willing participant in the plot. But in court, the evidence against him specifically, not the evidence against the other defendants, but the evidence tying him directly to a knowing criminal conspiracy, apparently didn't hold up to the standard needed for conviction. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and the full details of what went down in that courtroom are complicated, but the bottom line is this: the jury or the process did not result in a conviction for Hernandez Govan. He walked. And gang, I cannot tell you how that landed with people who love Dolph. I cannot even describe it, because here's the thing. In the court of public opinion, and especially in Memphis, people had already made up their minds. People felt like this man was connected to what happened to Dolph, and watching him walk free, that was a wound. That was something that sat with people. But here's where Hernandez Govan made everything exponentially worse for himself. Because a lot of people, when they beat a serious charge, when they come out the other side of something like that, they lay low, they stay quiet, they understand that they just escaped something major, and they move accordingly, they go live their life. That is a smart move. That is what any rational person would do. Hernandez Govan did the opposite. Y'all are not ready for this part, because when this man got out, when he beat the case and came home, he started doing interviews. He started talking. He started going on platforms, going live, doing podcasts, doing these sit-down conversations, and the energy he was given was not the energy of a man who just narrowly avoided prison. It was not the energy of someone humbled by a close call. The energy he was given was, and I want you to really hear what I'm saying, it was almost like he was embracing the narrative, like he was leaning into the idea that he was connected to what happened to Dolph. Now, some people will say, and his supporters would argue, that he was simply defending himself publicly, that he was setting the record straight after being falsely accused. And I hear that argument, but the way he was moving, the things he was saying in these appearances, the way he was conducting himself, it read differently to a lot of people. It read like someone who was trying to build a reputation OFF of something terrible, like he was using the tragedy of Young Dolph's death as some kind of clout, as some kind of street credibility. And in Memphis, in PRE circles, in the community that actually knew and loved Dolph, that did not sit right with people. That was seen as disrespectful on a level that's hard to even quantify. Because Dolph had a family. He had a woman, Key, who loved him. He had children. He had a whole paper route empire of artists and people who depended on him, who looked up to him, who built their careers alongside him. And to have someone who was allegedly involved in his death out here doing press runs and talking about it like it's a badge of honor, that's a slap in the face to every single one of those people. And the streets don't forget. The streets do not forget. But now, and this is the part that I genuinely don't know how to feel about, and I want y'all to really sit with this one. We gotta talk about what happened to Hernandez Govin's daughter. Because here's the thing, gang. Life comes at you hard. And sometimes the universe has a way of bringing things full circle in ways that are jarring. Hernandez Govin's daughter was killed, his own child. And I'm going to be real with you. Regardless of everything, regardless of what this man allegedly did, regardless of what people think of him and how they feel about him, losing a child is something I wouldn't wish on anybody. That is a level of pain that transcends street politics, that transcends beef. Losing a child is losing a piece of yourself that you can never get back. And I think about that, and I think about the fact that young Dolph also left behind children, kids who grew up without their father because of what happened. And it's like violence just keeps taking. It keeps taking from families. It keeps producing children who have to grow up missing a parent. And that cycle is something that nobody went from. Nobody. Now, I'm not saying that what happened to his daughter was karma or justice or any of that, because I don't play with children's lives like that. I'm not going there. But I will say that the trajectory of Hernandez Govin's life after he beat that case, the choices he made, the way he moved publicly, the reputation he seemed to be chasing, none of it led to peace. None of it led somewhere good. And his daughter paid a price that she had nothing to do with. That's just the reality of the environment that these situations create. And I think that matters to the overall story, because this isn't just about beef and clout and viral videos. There are real lives attached to all of this. Real families, real grief. And I want y'all to hold that as we get into what just happened, because it gives it weight, it gives it context. Okay, so now we are fully caught up. You know who Hernandez Govin is. You know what the police alleged his role was. You know he beat the case. You know how he moved when he got out. You know the tragedy that touched his own family. Now let's talk about what just happened, because this is what everybody is talking about right now. Hernandez Govin hopped on Instagram Live. Now, why he's going live at this point in his life with everything that's attached to his name, I genuinely don't understand the thought process. But he did it. He went live, and apparently CSS Talia Sammy, who is a PRE affiliate, somebody who moves in Dolph circles, somebody who represents that side, he either saw the live himself or somebody pulled up and told him that this man was on Instagram Live and gave him the location or figured out where he was. And gang, he pulled up. Like in person, physically went to where Hernandez Govin was. And what happened next is the video that is currently making its rounds on every platform you can think of. There was a confrontation, it got physical, and the footage is out there. People are watching it, people are sharing it, and the reaction has been, I mean, you can imagine. In certain circles, CFS Talia Sammy is being treated like a hero right now. Like somebody who did what needed to be done. Like somebody who went and stood on business for Dolph's name, for PRE, for Memphis, for everybody who felt like justice didn't fully come through the court system. And I want to break down why that reaction exists, because I think it's important to understand. When someone is connected or alleged to be connected to something as significant as the murder of young Dolph, and they beat their case, and then they come out here moving the way Hernandez Govin moved, running his mouth, doing interviews, seemingly reveling in the notoriety, there is a segment of the population, and it's not a small one, who feels like the legal system failed, who feels like justice wasn't served. And when you feel like the system didn't come through, sometimes people take matters into their own hands. I'm not here to tell you that's right or wrong from a legal standpoint. I'm here to tell you that's the reality of how these situations play out. That's the code that exists in these environments. And CSS Talia Sammy catching word that this man was on live, locating him and physically showing up. That is that code being executed in real time. Now let's talk about CFS Talia Sammy for a second, because I think people deserve to know who this individual is before they just make assumptions. From what's out there on his Instagram and from what people in his circles have said, this is not somebody who just jumped on this situation for clout or for views. This is someone who genuinely has ties to PRE, who genuinely felt the connection to young Dolph and what he represented, and who has been vocal about his feelings toward the people alleged to be connected to Dolph's death for a while now. This isn't somebody who just woke up and decided to be a hero for the internet. This is someone who has had these feelings building up, and the fact that Hernandez Govan was sitting there on Instagram Live, comfortable, visible, accessible, was apparently the moment where it all came to a head. And the thing is, gang, going live in the street like that, with that kind of name attached to you, in a city like Memphis where people have long memories and deep loyalties, that's what they call lacking. Getting caught lacking. You can't be that accessible, that visible, that relaxed when you got that kind of history following you around. And Hernandez Govan found that out. The video of the confrontation has been spreading fast. And the comments, the reactions, the way people are engaging with this footage, it tells you everything you need to know about how the public feels about Hernandez Govan and his post-case behavior. People are not sympathizing with him in this moment. People are watching that video and feeling something entirely different. Let me also talk about what this means in the bigger picture of the Young Dolph legacy, because I think that's an important conversation to have. Young Dolph, Adolph Thornton Jr. was more than a rapper. I said that at the top, and I mean it more now than I did when I said it. This was a man who grew up in South Memphis, one of the toughest environments in the country, and carved out something extraordinary through sheer will and business acumen. He went independent at a time when everybody said you had to be signed to make it. He turned down deals that would have made other people rich because he believed in owning what he created. Paper Route Empire wasn't just a label, it was a philosophy. It was proof that you could do it on your own terms. And when he was killed, the grief in Memphis was palpable. You could feel it online, you could feel it in the music that came out afterward, you could feel it in the way Key and the family handled themselves in the aftermath with dignity, with purpose, continuing to push the PRE legacy forward. That grief didn't go away. It doesn't go away. And that grief is directly connected to the anger that people feel when they see someone like Hernandez Govan out here doing what he's been doing. Because when you love somebody, when you respect somebody's legacy, when you feel like they were taken from the world in a way that was deeply unjust, you don't forget. And you don't forget the people you believe were involved. You don't forget them when they beat their case. You don't forget them when they start doing interviews. And you definitely don't forget them when they hop on Instagram Live and act like everything is sweet. Everything is not sweet. And now everybody knows it. Let me also address something that I think is going to come up in the comments, because it always does when something like this happens. Some people are going to say, well, he beat the case. He's innocent. The court said he didn't do it. And legally, yes, he was not convicted. That is a fact. Our legal system operates on the principle of innocent until proven guilty. And by the standards of that system, he was not found guilty of what he was charged with. But gang, and I need y'all to really hear this, not being convicted is not the same as being innocent in the eyes of the people who love Dolph. It's not the same as being innocent in the eyes of Memphis. The court system has limitations. Evidence gets suppressed. Witnesses don't cooperate. Cases fall apart for procedural reasons that have nothing to do with actual guilt or innocence. And people who live in these communities know that. They've seen that. They've watched guilty people walk free and innocent people get time. So when someone beats a case like this, the automatic assumption in certain circles is not that they were innocent, especially when that person turns around and starts moving the way Hernandez Govan was moving. His behavior after getting out, the interviews, the energy, the way he was talking about all of this, essentially told on himself to the people who were watching. And that's why nobody who's clapping for CS Deadliest Sammy right now is really trying to hear that he beat the case argument. The court's opinion and the street's opinion are two very different things. And right now, the streets have spoken. And here's what I want to say directly about Cephas Deadliest Sammy's decision to pull up, because I know this is going to be a talking point. People are going to debate whether this was the right move. People are going to have opinions about it from every angle. But what I'll say is this, from the PRE side, from the people who ride for Dolph, this wasn't random beef. This wasn't clout chasing. This was someone who looked at the situation, felt like somebody disrespectful was out here breathing easy and running his mouth about something connected to the death of a man they love, and decided that wasn't going to happen without consequences. That's the context. Like it or not, that's the world this story exists in. And the fact that it happened because Hernandez was on live, that's the part that's going to sting the most for him. Because you chose to go live, you chose to be visible, you essentially handed someone who had a problem with you a roadmap to where you were. That's not something anyone forced on you, that was a choice. And that choice had consequences. Cephas Deadliest Sammy saw it, moved on it, and now the video is everywhere. And Hernandez Govan, who has spent time since beating his case trying to build some kind of public profile around his infamy, is now viral again, but not on his own terms. Not in an interview chair, not talking his talk. In a video where somebody pre-affiliated showed up and made him answer for all of it. Gang, let me bring this home, because we've covered a lot of ground in this video and I want to make sure it all connects before I let you go. We started with Young Dolph, November 17th, 2021. The loss of a legend, a real one. Someone who built something from nothing and represented for Memphis at the highest level. We talked about Hernandez Govan and what law enforcement alleged his role was, the conspiracy, the car, the coordination, and how he was charged as part of that case. We talked about how he beat those charges and how instead of moving accordingly, he went out here doing interviews and seemingly embracing the narrative that came with his name being attached to Dolph's death. We talked about the loss of his daughter, a tragedy that speaks to the endless cycle of violence and pain that ripples out from these situations, touching innocent people who never asked for any of it. And then we got to right now, CF Estavia Sammy finding out this man was on live, pulling up on him, and the video of that confrontation going viral across the internet. This is a story about loyalty, about grief, about what happens when someone feels like justice didn't come through the proper channels and decides to do something about it, about the consequences of the choices you make when you beat a serious charge and then go out here moving reckless instead of moving smart. And at the foundation of all of it is Young Dolph, a man whose name, whose legacy, whose memory still carries so much weight that people are willing to move on his behalf years after he's been gone. That's what real loyalty looks like. That's what it means when somebody actually meant something to the people around them. You don't just mourn them and move on. You carry that with you. And when you see something that feels like a violation of their name, of their memory, of what they stood for, some people don't just scroll past it. Some people pull up. And now everybody's watching. If you're new to the channel and this video just put you onto the full Hernandez Govan situation, welcome. Subscribe because we cover all of this, all the real stories, all the things that don't always get the full breakdown they deserve. If you've been here, you already know what we do. Drop in the comments what you think about all of this, about CF Estavia Sammy pulling up, about Hernandez Govan's behavior since he beat the case, about all of it. I want to hear where y'all are at with this. And if you want to see more content breaking down the full stories behind the headlines, hit that like button because it tells me you want more of this. And I'll keep bringing it. Long live Young Dolph. PRE forever. I'll catch y'all in the next one.
It looks like Finesse 2 times got his ass finessed by the one and only J. Prince Jr. His contract just got leaked, and let me tell y'all, this has got to be one of the worst deals I have ever seen in my life. No cap. Before we break this shit down, let's talk about how Finesse is trying to get up with the Prince family, but that might be the worst mistake he will ever make. But first, let me break down how this whole situation is about to blow your mind. And yo, before we dive deep into this mess, make sure y'all hit that like button because this story is about to get real crazy, real fast. We're talking about contracts, millions of dollars, and family dynasties that'll make your head spin. So check this out, fam. Back in September 2022, Finesse 2 times thought he was making the move of his life. This dude signed with Mob Ties Entertainment, which is J. Prince Jr.'s label, thinking he was about to secure the bag. But what if I told you that from day one, this man was walking into a trap that would leave him broke and begging to get out? Bro, when I first saw this contract, I said, oh my God, what the hell is this? This ain't no regular record deal. This is straight up highway robbery with a pen and paper. The contract shows that Finesse signed an exclusive service agreement, but here's where it gets insane. They brought in not just one, but 2 entities to split his money. See, most artists, when they get signed, they think they're dealing with one company. You sign to the label gets their cut, you get yours, everybody's happy. But the Prince family said, nah, we're gonna do this different. They created a whole system where multiple companies get paid off one artist's work. Now let's talk about that advance money, because this is where the finessing really starts. When artists get signed, they usually get an advance. That's like your signing bonus, right? It's supposed to help you live while you're making music and building your career. But here's the crazy part that's got me heated. Even with that advance money, Finesse only got to keep a small percentage of it. The contract shows that any money coming in gets split 3 ways. 35% to the artist, that's Finesse. 35% to Mob Ties, that's J. Prince Jr.'s company, and 30% to something called JPE, which is James Prince Entertainment. And guess who that is? That's Jay Prince Sr., the father. So let me break this down for y'all real quick. If $1 million comes in, Finesse gets $350,000, Jay Prince Jr. gets $350,000, and the father gets $300,000. Bro, that's actually insane. This man is getting double dipped by the whole Prince family. But wait, it gets even worse. That advance money, Finesse has to pay that back from his 35% before he sees any additional money. So if they gave him a $200,000 advance, he's got to earn back $571,000 in total revenue just to break even on that advance. Meanwhile, the Prince family is collecting their 65% the entire time. And here's where it gets even more messed up. I did some research on these companies, and both Mob Ties and Jay Prince Entertainment are registered in Texas. Jay Prince Jr. owns Mob Ties, and his father owns Jay Prince Entertainment. So essentially, what's happening here is that the son signed Finesse to his label, then brought in his daddy to get a piece of the action too. Y'all seeing this? This is like if I signed you to my label, then told you my pops also needs to get paid just because. That's not how this business is supposed to work for real. But the Prince family has been doing business like this for decades. They've built an empire where every deal benefits multiple family members. Jay Prince Sr. has been in the game since the 80s with Rap-A-Lot Records. This man has seen every type of deal, every type of contract, and he knows exactly how to structure things to maximize profit for his family. When his son started Mob Ties, you best believe Daddy was going to get his piece too. The crazy part is this creates a conflict of interest that would make any lawyer's head spin. If Jay Prince Jr. is supposed to be looking out for his artist's best interests, but his father is also getting paid from the same pot, whose interests is he really serving? But wait, it gets worse. This ain't just a recording contract. This is what they call a 360 deal. That means they get a piece of everything Finesse makes. His music, his merchandise, his endorsements, his touring, his appearance fees, his streaming revenue, everything. The contract specifically states they get rights to use his name, his image, his likeness for sponsorships and endorsements. So not only are they taking 70% of his music money, they're also taking 70% of his merch money, his appearance fees, everything. This man can't make a dollar without the Prince family getting their hands on it first. Let me put this in perspective for y'all. If Finesse does a show and makes $10,000, he only keeps $3,500. If he sells $5,000 worth of merchandise, he only keeps $1,750. If he gets a $20,000 endorsement deal, he only keeps $7,000. Every single revenue stream is being taxed by this contract. And the merchandising clause is particularly nasty. They can use his name and likeness for products without even asking him first. They could literally make Finesse 2x t-shirts, sell them for $30 each, and he'd only get $10.50 per shirt while they keep $19.50. That's insane. Now here's the part that really got me heated. This contract is for 5 albums. 5. Most production deals should be for maybe 1 or 2 albums max, but they locked this man in for 5 projects. That's how labels keep you trapped, gang. They know that by album 2 or 3 you might blow up and want to leave, but they got you locked in legally. And get this, the royalty rates actually go up slightly with each album. Album 1 is 14%, album 2 is 14.5%, and it goes up to 16% by albums 4 and 5. But here's the thing. That's 14% of their 35%, not 14% of the total. So we're talking about maybe an extra 4 to 5% for Finesse after they've already taken their cut. But here's what's really messed up about this 5-album deal. There's no guarantee they'll actually promote or push any of these albums. They could just sit on his music, collect their percentage from whatever he does independently, and keep him locked up until the contract expires. This is the same type of deal that kept artists like Lil Wayne trapped at Cash Money for years. The label has no incentive to let you go because they're making money off you regardless of whether they're actually working your music or not. Now let me tell you all about Finesse 2Time's background because this makes the whole situation even more heartbreaking. This man is from Memphis, Tennessee, and he's been grinding in the streets and in music for years. He's 33 years old, which in rap years means he's running out of time to make his mark. Finesse has been through the system. He's done time, he's struggled, and music was supposed to be his way out. When Mob Ties came calling, this probably felt like his lottery ticket. Finally, a real label with real connections was going to help him reach the next level. But instead of being his salvation, this contract became his prison. He's been with them for 4 years now, and in that time, they've only released 2 projects. 4 years. That's prime career time that he can't get back. The man has been funding his own videos, his own promotion, basically acting independent while still being locked into this contract. He said he's about 10 to 15,000 in the hole for stuff the label was supposed to handle. That's crazy. You signed to a label so they can handle the business side, but instead you're paying out of pocket while they collect 70% of your earnings. And yo, this is where the story gets really sad. Finesse went live on Instagram, and this grown man started tearing up talking about his situation. He was literally begging J. Prince Jr. to let him out of the contract. He said, "Junior, let me go. We already made all the money we can make together. I don't want to go to no other label with you. I love you, but I no longer want to be mob ties business-wise." Bro, when I heard that, I felt that pain in his voice. This man is 33 years old. He's been grinding for years, and he's watching other artists his age make millions while he's stuck in this contract getting crumbs. But the most heartbreaking part was when he started talking about his family. He said, "I got kids to feed, I got bills to pay, and I'm out here looking crazy because I can't provide the way I should be able to." That hit different for real. You could hear the desperation in his voice when he said, "P, let me go make my money. It's over with, we done." This wasn't anger talking. This was a man who's been pushed to his breaking point. But here's what really got me heated about this whole situation. Finesse mentioned that J. Prince Jr.'s daddy is worth $300 million, but they're still squeezing every penny out of him. That's the part that don't make sense to me. If your family is already worth hundreds of millions, why are you taking 70% from an artist who's struggling to make ends meet? That's not business, that's just greed at that point. The man is literally crying on Instagram Live, talking about how he can't provide for his family properly because of this contract. J. Prince Sr. built his wealth over decades in the music industry. He's had successful artists, he's made smart investments, and his family is set for generations. So why are they still squeezing artists like Finesse for every penny? It's like a billionaire fighting over a $20 bill with a homeless person. Technically, it's their right, but morally, that's a different conversation. Now here's where things get really scary for Finesse. Going public with this beef against the Prince family is a dangerous game. We all know the reputation that comes with the Prince name in Houston and the music industry. They don't play when it comes to business, and they definitely don't like their business being aired out publicly. The Prince family has connections throughout the industry. They can make phone calls that can shut down opportunities, block radio play, or make it hard for an artist to get booked for shows. When you go to war with them, you're not just fighting a label, you're fighting an entire network. But Finesse is at the point where he feels like he has no choice. He said he's ready to meet up anywhere, by himself, to try to resolve this situation. That takes some serious courage, but it also shows how desperate he is to get out of this deal. He even said, "I don't have a daddy that's worth 300 million, so I know it's easy for you not to give a f." That line hit hard because it shows he understands the power imbalance he's dealing with. And this ain't just about Finesse. This is a pattern we see all over the music industry. Young artists get excited about getting signed. They don't read the fine print, and they end up trapped in deals that benefit everyone except them. Look at what happened with Megan Thee Stallion and 1501 Entertainment. Similar situation. She blew up, wanted to renegotiate or leave, and ended up in a legal battle that lasted years. The label was making money off her success while she was fighting just to control her own career. Or look at the situation with Lil Wayne and Cash Money. Wayne was one of the biggest rappers in the world, but he was stuck in a deal that kept him from releasing music when he wanted to. It took years of legal battles and public feuding before he finally got free.
Rapper Lil Wayne has pleaded guilty to a federal weapons charge. He faces up to 10 years in prison.
The crazy part is, contracts like this are more common than people think. A lot of your favorite artists probably signed similar deals when they first started. The difference is, most of them either blow up big enough to renegotiate or they stay quiet about it. Now let's talk about the legal side of this, because this is where things get really complicated. When you sign a contract like this, you're legally bound to fulfill your obligations. That means Finesse can't just walk away, even if the deal is terrible. The contract probably has clauses about what happens if he tries to break it. There could be financial penalties, legal fees, or they could sue him for damages. Labels have teams of lawyers whose job is to make sure these contracts are ironclad. But here's the thing. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's right. These contracts are often written in language that's hard for regular people to understand. Artists get excited about getting signed and don't always have good legal representation to explain what they're really agreeing to. Finesse probably thought he was signing a standard record deal. He might not have understood that he was essentially signing over 70% of his entire career to the Prince family for the next 5 albums. What makes this even worse is seeing other artists from Memphis and the South making real money while Finesse is stuck. He's watching dudes he came up with buying houses and cars while he's still trying to recoup money he spent on his own videos. Artists like Moneybagg Yo, who's also from Memphis, are making millions and living good. Meanwhile, Finesse is stuck in a contract that keeps him broke despite having talent and a fan base. The man said he could potentially make 10 to 20 million if he was free to sign elsewhere. That's life-changing money that he's missing out on because of this contract. Imagine being that close to generational wealth, but being legally blocked from getting it. He's probably watching other artists get million-dollar advances while he's fighting over a few $1,000s. That's gotta be torture for someone who knows they have the talent to compete at that level. And let's talk about this recoupment situation, because this is where a lot of artists get confused. Even though Finesse is only getting 35% of the money coming in, he still has to recoup any advances or money the label spent on him before he sees additional royalties. So if they gave him a $200,000 advance, he has to earn back that $200,000 from his 35% before he starts seeing any extra money. Meanwhile, the label is collecting their 65% the whole time. It's like being in debt while your creditors are getting rich off your work. But here's what's really messed up. The label gets to decide what counts as expenses that need to be recouped. Studio time, marketing, promotion, music videos, all of that comes out of the artist's share first. So even if Finesse's music generates $1 million in revenue, if the label says they spent $300,000 on expenses, Finesse has to earn back $857,000 from his 35% share before he sees any additional money. That's almost impossible math. Now let's talk about how this contract affects Finesse in the streaming era, because this is where things get really crazy. Streaming pays pennies compared to physical sales, so artists need massive numbers to make real money. If Finesse gets 1 million streams on Spotify, that might generate $3,000 to $4,000 in revenue. But with his contract, he only keeps 35% of that, which is maybe $1,200. After taxes and expenses, he might walk away with $600 to $800 from 1 million streams. Meanwhile, an independent artist would keep most of that $3,000 to $4,000. So Finesse needs to get almost 3 times as many streams as an independent artist just to make the same money. That's insane. And with the way streaming works, you need consistent releases to stay relevant. But if the label isn't pushing his music or is slow to release projects, Finesse can't build the momentum he needs to generate those massive streaming numbers. What makes this situation even more painful is social media. Finesse can see other artists flexing their success in real time. He's watching rappers buy chains, cars, and houses while he's stuck in a contract that keeps him broke. What really gets me about this situation is the emotional toll it's taking on Finesse. This man went from being excited about his music career to literally begging to be released from his contract. That's not what the music industry should be about, and he's talking about how he's 33 years old and feeling like time is running out. In the rap game, age matters, and every year you're stuck in a bad deal is a year you can't get back. The desperation in his voice when he's asking to be let go is heartbreaking, for real. You can hear the frustration when he talks about being independent, but not really independent. He's doing all the work of an independent artist, funding his own videos, promoting his own music, building his own fan base, but he's still giving away 70% of everything he makes. That's gotta mess with your head. You're working harder than ever, but seeing less money than you would if you were truly independent. It's like being a slave with extra steps. The Prince family has relationships with radio programmers, streaming playlist curators, booking agents, and other industry gatekeepers. If they wanted to, they could make it very difficult for Finesse to succeed even if he did get out of his contract. But sometimes, when you're backed into a corner, you gotta fight with whatever weapons you have. For Finesse, that weapon is his voice and his story. This situation with Finesse is bigger than just one bad contract. It's about how the music industry continues to exploit artists, especially artists from certain backgrounds who might not have access to good legal representation when they're signing deals. How many other artists are stuck in similar situations but don't have the courage to speak out? How many careers have been destroyed by contracts like this? It makes you wonder about the whole system and whether it's really designed to help artists or just profit off their talent. The music industry has always been about powerful people making money off talented people who don't understand the business side. But in 2024, with all the information available and all the independent success stories we've seen, there's no excuse for deals this predatory. Artists need to educate themselves, get good lawyers, and understand that a record deal isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it's a curse disguised as an opportunity. What happens next in this situation could set a precedent for other artists in similar situations. If Finesse is able to get out of his contract or renegotiate better terms, it might encourage other artists to speak up about their own bad deals. But if the Prince family decides to make an example out of him, it could scare other artists into staying quiet about their own situations. The industry is watching to see how this plays out. Either way, Finesse has already accomplished something important. He's brought attention to how these predatory contracts work and how they can trap artists for years. And that's the real story behind how J. Prince Jr. finessed Finesse 2 times out of millions. This contract is one of the worst deals I've ever seen, and the fact that this man is stuck in it for 5 albums is just insane. The 70-30 split with the Prince family, the 5-album commitment, the 360 deal that covers everything he makes. It's all designed to keep Finesse working while other people get rich off his talent. And if you want more content breaking down the business side of hip-hop and exposing these industry secrets, make sure you subscribe because I got more stories that's gonna blow your mind. The music industry is wild, gang, and sometimes the people who are supposed to help artists make it are the same ones keeping them down. Stay woke, stay informed, and remember, always read the fine print before you sign anything.
After that happened, they went and shot up this nigga family house. They wiped out his whole family. Baby mama, granny. Them niggas is dead. Like, they went and did John's that same day. That nigga peoples is dead behind that. And it's like, most niggas would have been like, I ain't got shit to live for. Shit, y'all killed my people. Big, and if Big U, that's you know, I gotta play devil's advocate.
Black Sam is being investigated for the murders of Eric Holder's family members. 4 people, connected to the man who killed his brother, all dead within 9 months of Nipsey hitting the ground. And the reason detectives are looking at Sam? Because somebody with serious reach, serious resources, and serious motive made sure every person with Holder's blood in their veins paid a price. His cousins, gone. The next day, his half-brother was found dead in his own crib. His father, murdered before the year was even over. And Sam, he went on camera and told the world he wished Eric Holder wasn't locked up. Not because he forgave him, but because bars were the only thing keeping Holder alive. Y'all need to hear this story. To understand where we are right now, you gotta understand who Black Sam is. Because the media wants you to think of him as just Nipsey's older brother. The quiet one in the background at the vigils, the one holding Lauren London while she cried, the one giving measured statements to the press. But gang, Black Sam is not a civilian. Samuel asked Datum, Black Sam, grew up in Crenshaw, same streets as Nipsey, same hood. He ain't just Nipsey's brother by blood. He was his brother in every sense of the word.
He loved everybody and he loved where he grew up.
They built the Crenshaw brand together. Sam was the muscle, the business mind, the one making sure the infrastructure stayed solid while Nipsey was out there being the face.
I swear to God, everything he said in the music was who he was, and it's not too much I can't tell you about him, and I just hope that he knows we all proud of him.
And critically, Black Sam is rolling 60s Crip.
So much hope, and Nipsey was the people's champ. He gave us all hope.
This is not speculation, this is not a reach. He grew up in the set. And that matters because everything that happened after March 31st, 2019 has to be understood through the lens of what the rolling 60s are, what they're capable of, and what happens when you violate someone who sits at that level of respect within that culture.
It's a major loss for our community. So many jobs have been lost since Nipsey's been gone.
Now, when Nipsey died, the whole world grieved. LeBron James posted. Jay-Z sent flowers. Thousands flooded the streets of Crenshaw. Churches refused to host the funeral because they were scared of what the crowd might bring. It took LeBron James and Karen Civil personally stepping in to lock down Crypto.com Arena, formerly the Staples Center, just so the city could properly say goodbye. That's the level we're talking about. And Black Sam, he watched all of that. He watched his little brother get buried. He watched Lauren London break down. He watched Nipsey's kids have to grow up without their father. He watched a man they grew up around, a man from their same neighborhood and same set, take everything from them. You think that man forgot? You think he moved on? No cap. The streets never moved on. Let's set the scene.
It's March 31st, 2019, a Sunday afternoon. Nipsey Hussle pulls up to his own store, the Marathon Clothing in the Hyde Park neighborhood of South Los Angeles. This is his kingdom, his block, a place he built from nothing to represent everything. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets interesting. The protocol wasn't followed. In that August 2024 interview with Big Boy, Black Sam broke this down with the kind of detail that only someone who lived it would know. He said, and I'm keeping it as close to his words as possible, that every single time Nipsey pulled up to the store, there was a security protocol. Sam would be in the doorway, hoodie on, armed, a team member posted up right next to him. Armed, that was the standing order, that was the policy. But on that Sunday, nobody was in the doorway. The store was busy, customers everywhere. The team was, according to Sam's theory, distracted, helping people, trying to do legitimate business. And that lapse, that one break in the protocol, cost Nipsey his life. Because Eric Holder had already been scoping the scene. Sam laid it out like a detective. He said that before the shooting, a man walked up to the parking lot with no shirt on, shirtless, just to check what was happening, to survey. He saw that nobody was posted in the doorway. He saw that Nipsey was there in shorts, looking relaxed, unguarded. He checked the whole scene, then turned around and walked back out. Then he came back, this time with a red shirt on. And here's the detail that Black Sam flagged, and it's cold when you think about it. There are no red shirt in that neighborhood. You cannot buy a red shirt at a liquor store in Crenshaw. Red is blood territory. You don't wear red in Rolling 60s Crip Hood unless you are either a blood or you're using it as a disguise, as a throw-off, as Sam called it, something to throw people off when they're trying to identify you. The man tiptoed through the alley, came around the corner, and started shooting. Nipsey was hit at least 10, 11 times. 2 other people were wounded, and Eric Holder fled through the alley in a white Chevy Cruze being driven by a woman, his girlfriend at the time, who had no idea what was about to happen. Black Sam was 6 blocks away at his grandmother's house when he got the call. He said he jumped in his car, ran every stop sign, got to the scene as fast as he could. Nipsey was still breathing when Sam arrived, and then he wasn't. Sam said in the interview, "It was like the Twilight Zone after that. Everything I believed in. My faith was shattered." Now keep that image in your head of Sam standing over his brother watching him go, because that is the emotional foundation of everything that happened next. April 1st, 2019. One day after Nipsey Hussle is murdered, 2 men believed to be cousins of Eric Holder are shot and killed in South Central Los Angeles. One day. They didn't even let 24 hours go by. Now, the LAPD was careful to say these men were not believed to have anything to do with Nipsey's murder. They weren't suspected of being involved. They were just connected to the wrong person. But the streets knew exactly what this was. The Rolling 60s did not need a press release. The message was sent immediately and with zero hesitation. You touched ours, we're touching yours. April 2nd, Eric Holder is arrested. He gets taken into custody in Bellflower, a suburb of LA, thrown in solitary confinement while the legal process plays out. And here's the thing about Holder being in a cell, behind bars. He's untouchable physically. But his family, still out there. Now we're about a month out from Nipsey's murder. Things have barely settled. The memorial is done. The mourning is still raw. And then, Eric Holder's half-brother is found dead inside his own home. Mysteriously, inside his crib. No major fanfare, no big headlines. But the streets took note, because at this point, people are starting to connect dots. This ain't random violence. This is targeted. This is strategic. Somebody is sending a message to Eric Holder through the only language that can reach him now that he's locked up. The deaths of people he loves. And then the year ends. December 2019. Eric Holder's father is murdered in Los Angeles. His father, a man who by all available reporting had absolutely nothing to do with what his son did. A man who even wrote a letter read aloud in open court years later, apologizing on behalf of his son. A man who understood the gravity of what Eric had done. That man was killed. 4 family members, 2 cousins, a half-brother, a father. In less than 9 months after Nipsey's murder. Now, nobody was ever charged, nobody was ever publicly named by law enforcement in connection with those deaths. But the question that the streets have been asking ever since is simple. Who had the motive, the means, and the reach to make all of that happen? Fast forward to August 9th, 2024. 5 years later, most people have moved on. Eric Holder is sitting in a prison cell serving 60 years to life. The case is closed in the court system. And then Black Sam, who has been silent, composed, almost monk-like in his public restraint, sits down with Big Boy for a rare, lengthy, deeply personal interview, and he drops lines that, if you know how to listen, tell you everything. He breaks down the security protocol. He walks through the scouting of the scene. He lays out his theory that Holder was sent, that Holder didn't do this on his own, that someone used him to get to Nipsey. He says Holder was nervous. Holder didn't move right. Holder hesitated. But here's the moment that the internet grabbed and ran with. Sam said he wishes Eric Holder wasn't locked up. Now I need y'all to slow down and really absorb that. This man, whose baby brother was murdered in cold blood by Eric Holder, is saying he wishes Holder was not in prison. The reason he gave? Because prison shielded Holder from what would have happened to him on the streets. Think about what that statement implies. He's not saying he wishes Holder was free because he's forgiven him. He's saying that the prison walls are the only reason Eric Holder is still breathing. He's telling you, without telling you, that if Eric Holder had remained accessible on the streets, the outcome would have been different. And the internet went absolutely crazy. Because that quote, combined with the 4 bodies that dropped within 9 months of Nipsey's death, combined with the fact that Sam was visibly carrying the weight of this whole thing, it all started to paint a picture that law enforcement apparently was also looking at. Now here's where it gets crazy, and I want to be crystal clear about what we know versus what's being alleged, because this is important. There has been no official criminal charge filed against Black Sam, no public indictment, no press conference from the LAPD. What is circulating heavily across social media, across certain blogs and street-level channels, is that Sam is being looked at, that investigators have been quietly examining the deaths of Eric Holder's family members and asking questions about who had the network and the motivation to coordinate that level of retaliation. And when you apply basic logic to the situation, when you follow the timing, the relationships, the street dynamics, the conversation keeps circling back to the same place. Now let's look at the evidence the streets are citing. First, the speed. The cousins were dead one day after Nipsey. That's not improvised. That's not some random individual acting out of grief. That requires knowledge of who Eric Holder's people are, where they live, and coordination to act on that information faster than the news cycle could even process what had happened. That's organized. That's calculated. Second, the escalation. Each subsequent death came in waves, not all at once. Cousins first, then the half-brother a month later, then the father by the end of the year. This isn't mob anger, this is a methodical progression. Someone was making deliberate decisions about timing. Third, Sam's own words. He went on record saying Holder was probably following orders, that someone sent him. That means Sam believes there's a bigger conspiracy around Nipsey's death. And if you believe there's a conspiracy, if you believe your brother was set up and executed, your retaliation wouldn't stop at the shooter. You'd be going up the chain. And fourth, the Brick Baby situation. In late 2024, Brick Baby, a rapper who has been publicly vocal about his longtime friendship with Eric Holder, revealed that he and Black Sam had a direct confrontation, a clash, over the fact that Brick Baby remained publicly associated with Holder. Brick Baby said he understood where Sam was coming from emotionally, but that he couldn't deny a lifelong relationship. That confrontation showed that Sam is still in active grief and anger over this situation. Even years later, he is not at peace. He is not done. But here's what really happened. And this is the part that makes the investigation narrative make sense as something more than just street gossip. Law enforcement in Los Angeles has long maintained open investigations into gang-related retaliatory killings. The murders of Eric Holder's family members were never officially solved, meaning those cases are still technically active. And when you have 4 unsolved murders connected to one of the most high-profile gang-related killings in LA history, the detectives never really closed the file. So when the question is Black Sam being investigated, the more accurate framing might be, has his name ever come up in the context of those open investigations? In a city like LA, in a case this big, it would be more surprising if it hadn't. Meanwhile, let's talk about Eric Holder's reality right now. He's sitting in state prison, 60 years to life, number realistic chance of parole in his lifetime. And his attorney said something in 2023 that should give you a chill. He said, once Holder gets to state prison, he is a marked man. There is a green light on him from every gang that ever loved Nipsey Hussle. And Nipsey was loved everywhere. His lawyer straight up said his life in prison is going to be hell for as long as it lasts. That's not just a legal observation. That's a warning. That's someone who knows how this works telling you that Eric Holder's survival inside is not guaranteed. And that's before you factor in the fact that 4 of his family members are already dead, and the man who many believe to be responsible has publicly stated he wishes Holder was accessible on the streets. Eric Holder in this situation is a man who cannot win. He cannot appeal his way out. He cannot snitch his way out. And ironically, that's what he killed Nipsey over in the first place, an accusation of snitching. He cannot move locations. He cannot protect himself or his remaining family. He is a man who made the worst decision of his life on March 31st, 2019, and he will be paying for it in every possible way for the rest of his days. And his father, who submitted that apology letter at trial, he didn't live to see the sentence handed down. That's the weight of what we're discussing. Now let me zoom out, because this story isn't just about retaliation and bodies. This story is about what happens to the people left behind when tragedy hits at this level. Black Sam built something with his brother. He didn't just lose a sibling, he lost a business partner, a creative force, a cultural movement that was still in the middle of becoming what it was always meant to be, and he's had to carry that marathon forward. Literally. The Marathon clothing store, Marathon Burger, the whole legacy, Sam has been the one holding that together while processing unspeakable grief. And here's the real tea. The man has carried that grief with incredible restraint. He's not been on social media beefing. He's not been giving reckless interviews every month. He's been quiet, deliberate, composed. The Big Boy interview, in August 2024, was described as rare for a reason. This man doesn't speak unless he has something to say, which makes every word he say in that interview carry 10 times the weight. When Black Sam says he believes the murder was premeditated and that Holder was sent, that's not something you say publicly without having thought about it deeply. When he says he wishes Holder wasn't locked up, that's not a slip of the tongue. That is a man telling you exactly where he stands. And that statement, no cap, is the reason this investigation narrative exists at all. Because when you are a man of Sam's stature, from Sam's background with Sam's connections, and 4 people connected to the man who killed your brother end up dead, and then you go on camera and say you wish that man was accessible on the streets, the conversation that follows is inevitable. Is Black Sam a grieving brother who kept his loyalty to his people? Or is he something more? The architect of a retaliation so thorough that it wiped out an entire generation of one family. The truth is, and real recognize real here, those two things might not even be mutually exclusive in the world where all of this took place. Y'all, this story is not over. Eric Holder has a green light on him inside those prison walls. 4 of his family members are dead under circumstances that no one has been charged for. Black Sam is allegedly on law enforcement's radar, not because there's been an arrest or a charge, but because in a case this big, with this many bodies and this many unanswered questions, they would have to be looking at everyone with motive and means. And the man who had the most motive of anyone in this entire situation just gave a public interview 5 years later, practically telling you he understands why all of it happened. The marathon continues. That's what they always say. And it does. The store is open, the kids are growing up, Lauren London is healing, the music still plays. But underneath all of that, there are still active investigations. There are still questions. There are still people in Crenshaw and beyond who know more than they've said publicly. Nipsey Hussle used to say, having strong enemies is a blessing. He understood that the price of building something real in the streets was that people would always want to tear it down. And he paid that price with his life. What nobody talks about enough is the price that the people who loved him are still paying. Black Sam wakes up every day carrying something most of us can't even imagine. He built a legacy. He held the line. He ran the marathon even when it hurt. And whether he did what the streets say he did or not, the code he lives by, the world he was raised in, and the love he had for his brother made him the kind of man that nobody in their right mind would want to be on the wrong side of. All I'm saying is, Shitty Cuz made a choice on March 31st, 2019, and that choice had consequences that reached far beyond that parking lot in Hyde Park. The streets keep score. They always have. Drop a comment. Do you think Black Sam is responsible for what happened to Eric Holder's family? And do you think, given the circumstances, that anything about this situation changes how you feel about the legacy of Nipsey Hussle? I want to hear from y'all. And if you don't know the full story of who set Nipsey up, because according to Black Sam himself, Eric Holder did not act alone. Stay locked in, because that video is coming, and it's going to change the way you see this whole situation. The marathon continues. When young Dolph was murdered on November 17, 2021, the people who loved him did not just grieve, they moved. And the man the streets say moved hardest was not some unknown soldier. It was Dolph's own cousin, CEO Jizzle. People connected to Dolph's assassination ended up dead in the years that followed. And every time the streets try to explain those deaths, one name keeps coming up. CEO Jizzle. Not a label executive, not a manager,
not someone operating from a distance. Dolph's blood, a man who grew up in the same city, ran in the same circles and watched his cousin get taken in broad daylight inside a cookie store. The same man who then took a bullet himself, shot in the abdomen inside a packed arena in front of thousands of people, and came out the other side posting from his hospital bed like he had nothing to fear and everything to settle. The streets watched all of that unfold in real time, and the more they watched, the louder his name got. Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going all the way in on one of the most dangerous stories to ever come out of Memphis rap. Young Dolph's murder, the retaliation that followed, and the cousin who the streets say made sure every debt got paid. By the end of this, you are going to understand exactly why CEO Jizzle's name is attached to the deadliest revenge cycle Memphis has seen in a generation. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into the details, the street's been talking about CEO Jizzle since the moment Dolph's body hit the floor at Makita's Cookies. What we are going to walk through today is the full picture. Who Dolph was, who ordered his murder, what happened to those people afterward, and where CEO Jizzle sits inside all of it. Because the documented facts alone are wild enough, and by the time we lay it all out, you will understand why his name is impossible to separate from everything that went down in Memphis after November 2021. To understand any of this, you have to understand who young Dolph was and what Memphis lost when they lost him. Adolph Robert Thornton Jr. was born in Chicago on July 27, 1985, but Memphis is where he became a legend. He grew up in the Castalia Heights neighborhood, one of the most underserved pockets of a city that has never had it easy. From those streets, he built something the music industry kept telling him he could not build without signing his life away to a major label. In 2010, Dolph founded Paper Route Empire, an independent record label he ran entirely on his own terms, with his own money, answering to nobody. By the height of his career, he had turned down a $22 million label deal and walked away without blinking. He told interviewers he just saw something else, something bigger, something that belonged entirely to him and the people around him. He signed his cousin by marriage, Key Glock, in 2017 after the two had been connecting at family gatherings for years. And that relationship produced some of the most celebrated collaborative projects in Memphis rap history, including the Dumb and Dumber series that put both of them at the top of the Southern rap conversation. He built out a full roster, including Jay Fizzle, Big Moochie Grape, Kenny Muni, and Snoop Bands. His fifth studio album, Rich Slave, debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200 in 2020. Young Dolph was not just a rapper. He was a blueprint. He was proof that you could build something real, something completely yours, without compromising a single thing. Every Thanksgiving, he came back to his neighborhood to give out turkeys to the community, giving back to the same streets that built him every single year without fail. That is the kind of man he was. And that is exactly why what happened to him hit so different. So check it. November 17th, 2021, young Dolph stopped into Makita's homemade butter cookies on Airways Boulevard in Memphis. He was picking up cookies for his family around the holidays, doing exactly what he always did when he came back home. Two men pulled up in a stolen white Mercedes-Benz, walked up to the building, and opened fire. Dolph was shot and killed inside a neighborhood cookie store in broad daylight in his own city, surrounded by people who loved him.
Rapper Young Dolph was shot and killed at a bakery today. Young Dolph, whose real name is Adolph Robert Thornton Jr., was reportedly buying cookies at this bakery in his hometown when someone drove up and shot him. He was expected to give out turkeys for Thanksgiving on Friday. A county commissioner called his death gut-wrenching.
He was 36 years old. The shockwave that went through Memphis, through the rap industry, through communities across the country cannot be overstated. Flowers piled up outside Makita's for days. The city wept openly. Paper Route Empire went silent. Key Glock, the cousin who was more like a brother, disappeared from public view for weeks. And when the grief began to turn into something else, when the questions about who did this and why started getting answered, one by one, Memphis entered one of the most dangerous chapters in modern hip-hop history. But here's where it gets real. The investigation moved fast. Memphis police identified suspects through surveillance footage and cell phone records. Almost immediately, in January 2022, authorities arrested Justin Johnson, who went by the rap name Straight Drop, on first-degree murder charges. Cornelius Smith was arrested shortly after. A third man, Hernandez Govan, was charged with first-degree murder for allegedly orchestrating the entire hit. Justin Johnson's half-brother, Jamarcus Johnson, pleaded guilty in October 2023 3 counts of accessory after the fact for helping the shooters manage their phones and communications in the aftermath of the killing. The case went to trial in September 2024, nearly 3 years after Dolph was killed, and what came out of that courtroom shook the city all over again. Cornelius Smith took the stand on the very first day and admitted to being one of the gunmen. He identified himself in the surveillance footage from Makeda's cookies and did not flinch doing it. He laid out exactly how the whole thing came together, how Hernandez Govan, a street-level negotiator operating out of Orange Mound, connected him with Justin Johnson for the job. And then Smith said what the streets had already suspected, but nobody had confirmed under oath until that moment. Before the shooting, he had met with Govan and with a man named Big Juke, the older brother of Yo Gotti and a key power broker inside Collective Music Group. According to Smith's testimony, Big Juke had placed a $100,000 price tag on Young Dolph's life. Each shooter was supposed to collect $40,000. Govan would take $20,000 for putting the deal together. Smith only received $800 before getting arrested. Prosecutors also presented evidence that Justin Johnson made a FaceTime call directly to Big Juke right after the murder was done. Johnson was convicted on all 3 counts and sentenced to life in prison plus 35 additional years. The Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals upheld that conviction in early 2026.
Man sentenced to life in prison for killing young Dolph gets 35 more years tacked onto his sentence, meaning Justin Johnson could be in his 70s before he's even considered for parole.
Cornelius Smith was still finalizing a plea deal, and Hernandez Govan's case remained unresolved. Now let's talk about where CEO Jizzle enters this story, because this is where it gets real spicy. He is a Memphis-based rapper and Dolph's cousin. His presence in the Paper Route Empire circle has been publicly documented since Dolph's passing. He released music independently, stayed active on Instagram, kept performing in Memphis, and kept his name out there during a period when a lot of people in similar positions went completely quiet. He is not a major label artist and does not carry Dolph's level of mainstream reach. But in Memphis, after November 2021, none of that mattered. What mattered was blood. What mattered was who you were connected to and whether you were going to show up or disappear. And CEO Jizzle showed up every single time. For those who haven't been keeping up, let me break down what the streets were watching in real time. After Dolph's murder, the entire Paper Route Empire circle was under a microscope. Every post, every lyric, every show, every public move was being analyzed by fans, street media accounts, and YouTube commentary channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. CEO Jizzle was one of the most visible members of that circle. He kept making music. He stayed vocal on social media. He posted up, he performed. He moved through Memphis like a man who had not changed his routine for anybody. He made it absolutely clear that Dolph's death had not scared him away from anything. In Memphis, that kind of visibility in the middle of an active conflict is not just symbolic. It signals loyalty. It signals presence. It tells everybody watching that you are not running, not hiding, and not done. When people in those YouTube comment sections and Instagram DMs were asking each other who was going to hold it down for Dolph, CEO Jizzle's name was the one coming up over and over. The streets read every move he made through that lens from day one, and every move he made seemed to confirm exactly what they already believed. The story of what the streets say CEO Jizzle did after Dolph's murder did not build itself overnight. It came together piece by piece, incident by incident, as names connected to Dolph's murder started disappearing from the board. People plugged into Memphis began connecting events the mainstream news was treating as completely separate stories. Street media channels that cover Memphis in ways that national outlets simply do not were publishing breakdowns, dropping names, laying out timelines that official reporting had not caught up to yet. Every death, every shooting, every arrest with any connection to the PRE and CMG conflict was being pulled into a single narrative. A narrative about loyalty, about grief turning into action, about what happens when you take someone's family and that family decides to respond on their own terms. And the more lines people drew, the more one name kept appearing at the center of the map: CEO Jizzle. Now, this is where we got to address the biggest event that poured gasoline on all of this. The killing of Anthony Big Juke Mims on January 13th, 2024. Big Juke was the older brother of Yo Gotti and one of the most powerful behind-the-scenes figures at Collective Music Group. While his official title with the label was never publicly confirmed, his presence was everywhere. Video shoots, concerts, and industry events alongside Gotti and CMG artists including Glorilla and SG. Prosecutors at Justin Johnson's murder trial called him the number 2 person at CMG and described him as the man who bankrolled the hit on Dolph. The day before he was killed, Big Juke posted to Instagram, "They don't want to face you, they want to snake you. Stay alert, stay alive, watch your back at all times." That post read very differently after people saw what happened the very next afternoon. January 13th, 2024, 4:15 in the afternoon. A Memphis police officer in the area of 6385 Winchester Road heard multiple gunshots and moved toward the sound. He found 2 men on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds outside Perion's restaurant and event center. Big Juke had been there attending a repast following the funeral of a family relative named Eric Bovin. He was transported to St. Francis Hospital and pronounced dead at 47 years old.
Good evening, Daniel. Well, at least 5 police sources have confirmed with Fox 13 that the person killed is Anthony Mims, also known as Big Juke. Now, Big Juke is the brother of rapper Yo Gotti. Now, we were at that scene earlier tonight. Police say 2 men were shot outside Perion's restaurant and event center around 4:15. Now, that's on Winchester near Kirby. According to the Memphis Police Department, the victim was inside a vehicle at the time and was brought here to St. Francis Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased.
The second victim survived after being airlifted to Regional 1. Memphis Police Deputy Chief Paul Wright stated publicly that the shooting was targeted and that the specific individual hit was the intended victim. Surveillance footage captured a white Ford Explorer with black wheels and dark tinted windows leaving the scene. CMG released no statement. Yo Gotti said nothing publicly. At Big Juke's funeral later that month, snipers were positioned on rooftops and helicopters circled overhead outside the church in Hickory Hill. That level of security told its own story about how seriously everyone involved understood what was happening in Memphis. As of 2026, no arrests have been made and the case remains active. The real kicker though, when Cornelius Smith testified months later that Big Juke was the man who placed the $100,000 hit on young Dolph, the whole picture snapped into focus for anyone paying attention. The man who allegedly paid for Dolph's murder was now dead himself, taken out at a funeral repast in the middle of the afternoon. The streets reached the same conclusion across every platform simultaneously. Big Juke was the first domino, and CEO Jizzle's name was right there in every conversation about who pushed it over. Let me break down for y'all exactly how deep the underlying feud went, because without this context, none of what followed makes full sense. The history between young Dolph and Yo Gotti goes back to 2014, when Gotti tried to sign Dolph to CMG. Dolph turned him down publicly and without apology. He wanted to build his own lane, not attach himself to someone else's movement. From that rejection, what started as a business disagreement evolved into one of the most documented and dangerous rap rivalries in modern American music. By 2016, the tension was fully public. Dolph named his debut album King of Memphis, a title Gotti had long claimed for himself. A direct shot that Gotti could not pretend he did not notice. CMG signee Black Youngster began threatening Dolph openly on Instagram, even showing up in Dolph's own neighborhood to film confrontational videos daring him to respond. Dolph released diss records, Gotti fired back, and then it stopped being music. In February 2017, Dolph's bulletproof SUV was hit more than 100 times in Charlotte, North Carolina. A vehicle later connected to a Black Youngster rental. 100 rounds, fam. That is not a warning. That is a statement. In September 2017, Dolph was shot near the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel in Los Angeles, with CMG-affiliated individuals later alleged to have been involved. Security associate Raul Hopkins testified during the murder trial that Dolph had repeatedly turned down offers to join CMG and blamed the label directly for the California shooting. There was also a 2015 shooting at Dolph's vehicle connected to the same camp. These were not subliminal lyrics and subtweets. There were real bullets in real cities across multiple years. Dolph survived all of it and kept talking, kept releasing music, kept refusing to back down. By the time November 17, 2021 arrived, the streets already knew this feud was always going to end somewhere irreversible. Now, after Big Juke's killing, The streets say it did not stop there. Every violent incident in Memphis during 2022, 2023, and into 2024 that touched anyone connected to either camp got folded into the growing narrative. YouTube channels dedicated to Memphis street reporting, Instagram and TikTok accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers, Reddit communities built around hip-hop investigations. All of them were piecing together timelines, cross-referencing court documents with social media posts, comparing timestamps between Instagram stories and shooting reports. Fan investigators were building cases the mainstream media had not even begun to touch. And CEO Jizzle's name was attached to every major chapter of that story every single time. But here's where it gets interesting, because not everything the internet connected was actually connected, and some of it created straight up confusion. Take Casino Jizzle. For those who haven't been keeping up, Casino Jizzle was a completely different Memphis rapper. His real name was Robert Tunstall, an unsigned independent artist with over 10 million Apple Music streams and 46 million YouTube views. On July 4th, 2023, Tunstall was shot and killed in the 2200 block of Goldbriar Lane in Northeast Memphis. His girlfriend witnessed her ex-boyfriend, 27-year-old Michael Clayton, walking away from the scene holding a gun. Clayton was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. This had nothing to do with PRE or CMG. It was a personal dispute entirely unrelated to the ongoing conflict. But because the name Jizzle appeared on both men, the internet merged the stories and folded Casino Jizzle's death into the revenge count connected to CEO Jizzle, building a body count narrative that spread across every platform before any correction could catch up. The real tea that got everybody shook was when the 2022 Memphis mass shooting got pulled into the story as well. A single gunman killed 4 people across multiple locations in incidents unrelated to Paper Route Empire or Collective Music Group. But because it happened in Memphis during the most volatile period the city had seen in years, and because the number matched the body count the streets were already attributing to CEO Jizzle, those stories got merged across social media. His name got permanently attached to that number in thumbnails, memes, and comment sections, reaching millions of people. That is how a narrative becomes a legend in the digital age. Not through verified reporting, but through the weight of repetition across enough platforms and enough voices. Now, this is where we got to address what happened to CEO Jizzle himself. Because while the streets were building that legend around him, somebody was building a plan against him. September 7th, 2023. Lil Baby was performing at FedEx Forum in Memphis as part of his It's Only Us tour, with Glorilla, Rilo Rodriguez, Gloss Up, and Hunkso all on the bill. At approximately 10:23 that night, mid-performance, a gunshot rang out inside the arena. Memphis police arrived within minutes and found a man struck in the abdomen. That man was CEO Jizzle. He was rushed to Regional 1 Health Medical Center in critical condition. FedEx Forum was evacuated. The show shut down immediately, and Lil Baby confirmed refunds for every ticket holder the following day. Memphis police stated publicly that the shooting was premeditated and that Jizzle was specifically targeted, as no other victims were reported. On September 27, 2023, 22-year-old Kevin Young, known by the alias K2 Times, was taken into custody in Cordova. Officers found 8 firearms, 2 magazines, ammunition, and marijuana at his residence. Young was charged with reckless endangerment, unlawful possession of a weapon, and felony weapon possession, and was identified by Memphis police as a well-documented gang member associated with the Rich and Ruthless gang. 2 others, Hylon Cowan and Truquez Boyd, were arrested at the same location on separate charges. The real kicker is what came out of that hospital room. CEO Jizzle filmed himself from his bed, hooked up to machines, bloody bandages across his chest and torso. He told his followers he was good. And then he said something that set every corner of the internet on fire. He told his opponents to pray for him, but to pray for themselves 10 times harder. He said absolutely no enemy was going to take him out. He told the blogs to stop posting him. He said this, concrete. That video got reshared by DJ Academics and went viral across every platform simultaneously. In the context of everything that had already gone down in Memphis, that was not read as a man processing a near-death experience from a hospital bed. That was read as a man who had already decided what came next. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, this ain't just about CEO Jizzle as an individual. This is about what happens to a city when someone like Young Dolph is taken and the people who loved him are left to decide what justice looks like on their own terms. In Memphis, loyalty to your people is not optional. It is the whole thing. It is the foundation everything else is built on. When Dolph was alive, he was the face, the one who stood in front of everything and made it clear that Paper Route Empire was not just a label but a family. When he was gone, every eye went looking for who would carry that energy forward, who was still standing, who was still moving, who had not disappeared into silence. CEO Jizzle answered that question without ever having to say a word. He showed up, he stayed visible, he survived an attempt on his own life inside a major arena and came out the other side telling the world he was still there. In Memphis, that combination of blood loyalty, survival, and refusal to stand down does not just make you a person. It makes you a symbol. And once the streets decided what that symbol represented, no court ruling and no official statement was ever going to change it. CEO Jizzle became the face of the retaliation narrative, whether he asked for it or not, and the streets built an entire story around him because every piece of his public life gave them reason to. For y'all who might not understand how these narratives spread in the digital age, let me explain. YouTube channels built around Memphis street reporting pull millions of views per video. Instagram accounts reach millions more. Reddit boards have users tracking court documents, analyzing surveillance footage, and mapping social media activity in real time. These are not casual observers. These are people who follow every development in Shelby County court filings, who notice when someone's Instagram goes private overnight, who screenshot posts before they get deleted and archive them for future reference. Every new shooting, every new arrest, every new post from anyone connected to either camp gets fed into the machine immediately. Timelines get built, connections get made, names get attached to events within hours of those events happening, and the story the internet tells often moves faster and reaches further than any official investigation ever could. When the streets want answers, they do not wait for a press conference. They build the case themselves and publish it to 3 million subscribers before the police even hold a media briefing. CEO Jizzle was at the center of that machine's output every single time something happened in Memphis, which meant his name stayed in the conversation whether any court confirmed it or not. At the end of the day, Dolph's murder did not just take one man's life. It changed Memphis hip-hop permanently. It turned an independent label into a living memorial, turned years of rap beef into a first-degree murder conviction, and turned the city's grief into a retaliation cycle the courts and the streets are still both trying to fully account for. Paper Route Empire released a tribute album in January 2022, just weeks after the killing. Key Glock continued making music and carrying the PRE legacy forward, releasing projects and selling out tours in Dolph's name. The RIAA certified Dolph single major as double platinum in early 2026, a posthumous milestone that reminded the world just how large his reach had always been. The label endured. Dolph's fiancée Mia J., the mother of his 2 children, released a statement after Justin Johnson's conviction saying the verdict brought relief and restored her confidence in the justice system, and that the past 3 years had tested her faith but strengthened her resolve to fight for Dolph and for all the families who never got answers at all. But the shadow of November 17th, 2021 never lifted. Every conversation about Memphis rap since that day begins and ends at a cookie store on Airways Boulevard, where one of the most authentic and independent voices in hip-hop history was silenced in broad daylight. The real question is, where does this story go from here? Cornelia Smith's sentencing is still being finalized. Hernandez Govin's case remains unresolved. Big Juke's killer has never been publicly identified, and that investigation sits cold as of 2026. Every new development out of the Shelby County Courthouse is going to send the internet back into full investigation mode, pulling up old timelines and building new ones. And CEO Jizzle's name is going to come up every single time without fail. Because in the story of what happened after young Dolph was murdered, his name is not a footnote. It is a central chapter, and the streets say that chapter is not finished yet. What are your thoughts on CEO Jizzle and everything that has gone down in Memphis since Dolph's murder? Drop it in the comments. We want to hear from y'all on this one. And click on the video on screen right now for more deep dives into the stories the culture is not ready to let go of. We will see y'all on the next one.
On the 250, man, I'ma beat the shit out your hoe ass when I catch you. I ain't now one of them nigga fool who finna be backstage ducking and dodging and running and I ain't on fan paper no more, fool. All you gotta do is tell your security, get out the way. I'ma tell man, get out the way. Man, I'ma sweep the floor with your whole ass, fool. You a bitch, nigga.
Finesse, 2 times just needs to sit his big goofy ass down. Yo, what's good, fam? We got some serious drama brewing in the rap game right now, and this one's getting messy real quick. We're talking about Finesse 2 times going absolutely nuclear on Offset, and homie, this crash out was something else entirely. Let me break down this whole situation for y'all because this beef got layers to it that'll have you shaking your head. So check it. It all started when Finesse 2 times was on Instagram Live, probably had a few drinks in him, and decided to get real disrespectful about Offset's personal situation. Now, we all know Offset been going through it ever since he found out his wife Cardi B was having a baby with NFL player Stephon Diggs. That's gotta hurt, no cap, but Finesse 2 times took it there and started clowning Offset about how his wife got took by a football player. Finesse was basically laughing at the man, talking about how this NFL dude came through and snatched his whole wife up. He was making jokes about the situation, calling it wild how a football player just walked in and took everything. The Memphis rapper was really having a field day with Offset's pain, and you could tell he was enjoying every minute of it. He kept going back to the same point, how another man came and took what Offset thought was his. Let them hoes go be with Javante Davis. Let them hoes go, Finesse 2 times said during his live stream. What's buddy? I ain't want to hit everybody, I said, man. What's that name? Who hit everybody? Man, I don't know the name, man. Handsome, man. He got braids, man. He was clearly talking about Stephon Diggs, but playing dumb about knowing his name at first. Now, that's some cold-blooded type stuff right there. But Finesse 2 times wasn't done. He kept going, really rubbing salt in the wound about how Offset's marriage fell apart. The way he was talking, you could tell this wasn't just casual jokes. This was calculated disrespect designed to get under Offset's skin. To understand why this beef hit so hard, you gotta know the background of both these rappers. Finesse 2 times is a Memphis street rapper who's been grinding for years, known for his raw lyrics and authentic street credibility. He's been locked up multiple times and always talks about that real street life. On the other hand, Offset was part of Migos, one of the biggest rap groups of the 2010s, living that luxury lifestyle with designer clothes and expensive jewelry. The contrast between these two couldn't be more different. Finesse 2 times represents that gritty, unfiltered Memphis sound, while Offset was living the Atlanta trap dream with chart-topping hits and mainstream success. But now, Offset's personal life was falling apart, and Finesse 2 times saw an opportunity to expose what he saw as weakness. Offset wasn't having none of that disrespect, though. The Migos member saw the clips going around and decided to respond. He commented on a post telling Finesse 2 times to keep his name out his mouth, but that wasn't enough for Offset. He took it a step further and posted on his Instagram story, making some serious threats about sliding on Finesse 2 times. He was talking about spinning on him and made it clear he wasn't playing games. The threats Offset made were serious, talking about, when we spank you, don't call the police. In street terms, spank means shoot. So Offset was basically threatening to shoot Finesse 2 times and telling him not to call the cops afterward. That's some heavy stuff right there, and it shows how heated Offset was getting about the situation. What made this even more interesting is the timing. Offset had been relatively quiet about his personal drama with Cardi B and Stephon Diggs, trying to handle things privately, but Finesse 2 times bringing it up publicly and laughing about it clearly struck a nerve. Offset felt like his manhood was being questioned, and in hip-hop culture, that's something you can't let slide. Now, when Finesse 2 times saw those threats, that's when everything went left. Homie hopped on Instagram Live and absolutely crashed out on Offset. And when I say crashed out, I mean this man went completely off the rails. He was heated, talking crazy, and wasn't holding back nothing. Finesse 2 times started off by saying he'd been trying to stay on his money and peace timing lately, focusing on his music and staying out of drama. I've been on straight music time lately, y'all. I've been pushing money and peace. I've been on some get money type stuff, he explained. But Offset's threats got him all the way twisted. He was like, you mad at me? You supposed to be mad at the football playing dude. Hey bro, don't at me bro. Don't get mad at me my boy, Finesse 2 times said during his live stream. Get mad at the football playing my boy, don't get mad at me. What's wrong with you, fool? Get mad at that dude sticking that football in that hole. That's what you get mad at. Don't get mad at me. He kept emphasizing how Offset was directing his anger at the wrong person. The Memphis rapper was making it clear that he wasn't the one who took Offset's wife. That was all Stefon Diggs. Get mad at that dude sticking that football up that man. You know what I'm talking about. Get up off me, my boy. This ain't that, my boy. But Finesse 2 Times wasn't stopping there. He started getting real personal, talking about how Offset been acting feminine and emotional about the whole situation. He called him out for suing his baby mama for $70 million while he's out here begging to see his own kids. You out here suing your baby mama, and I'm out here begging my baby mama to let me see my kids, Finesse said, pointing out what he saw as backwards priorities. You feminine as hell, man. Feminine ass dude, man. You out here suing. Come on, man. Finesse 2 Times continued. He was really going in on Offset's character, questioning his masculinity and calling him soft for handling the situation through lawsuits instead of like a man. The Memphis rapper really went in on Offset's character, calling him soft and saying he ain't built for the streets. You a real hoe for that, Finesse 2 Times said. You feminine as hell, man. You out here suing people instead of handling your business like a man. Then Finesse 2 Times started making some serious threats of his own. He told Offset that when he catches him, it's going to be problems. When I catch you, you going to have to live with that or die with it, he said, making it clear he wasn't playing around. He was talking about slapping all Offset's dreads out his head and beating him up whenever he sees him. I ain't never been one of them dudes who going to be backstage ducking and dodging, Finesse 2 Times declared. All you gotta do is tell your security to get out the way, I'ma tell my people to get out the way, and I'ma sweep the floor with your ass. The threats got even more specific and personal. I slap all your dreads out your head. You a bitch you talking about, Finesse 2 Times said. He was really trying to emasculate Offset with his words, calling him feminine and weak. Finesse 2 Times kept going, saying Offset ain't never been in no real street situations. You ain't catching no real wreck, man. Y'all don't know nothing about that life. He was basically calling Offset's street credibility into question, saying he's all rap and no action. Them little charges you catching, man. You ain't catching no real wreck, man. The threats got even more specific when Finesse 2 Times said he'd catch Offset anywhere, even at Disney World. I go to Disney World too, he said. I'll beat your ass at Disney World, boy. I go to Disney World. Yeah, I catch your ass at Disney World. Fire your ass up at Disney World, boy. Wherever I catch you, it's gonna be problems. This Disney World reference was particularly wild because it showed Finesse 2 Times was willing to get violent anywhere, even at a family-friendly place. That's some unhinged behavior right there, and it really showed how serious he was about his threats. But here's where it gets really wild. Finesse 2 Times started talking about money. He said if Offset wants to squash the beef, he's going to have to pay him $1 million. You're going to have to wire me $1 million, and I ain't playing. You better call QC or somebody because your ass going to need help paying me to get off your back. In order to squash this right here, you're going to have to wire me $1 million, Finesse 2 Times said. And I ain't playing with your ass. You better call QC or somebody. Your ass going to need help paying me to get off your ass. He kept emphasizing that Offset should be focused on the real issue, Stefon Diggs taking his wife. You need to be trying to spin on the football field, not on me, Finesse 2 Times said. You need to be trying to spin on the stadium. That's who got your wife, not me. This was probably the most disrespectful part of the whole rant. Finesse 2 Times was basically telling Offset that if he wants to be mad at somebody, be mad at the man who actually took his wife and got her pregnant. The logic was sound, even if the delivery was harsh. Finesse 2 Times also brought up how Offset didn't have this same energy for other rappers who dissed him or tried to get with Cardi B. You ain't say nothing when Pooh Shiesty shot his shot at your hoe. You ain't say nothing when Fredo Bang shot his shot at your hoe. You don't say nothing to him, but you feel like you can say something to me? He was pointing out what he saw as selective outrage from Offset. The Memphis rapper was basically saying Offset was picking and choosing his battles, going after him instead of the people who were actually trying to get with his wife. The Memphis rapper got even more disrespectful, talking about how Stefon Diggs is the one who's really winning in this situation. That football player paid your debt, he said, referring to the $70 million settlement. He told Cardi B, "Here, give this crybaby this money so he can get out our business." Finesse 2 Times painted a picture of Stefon Diggs, essentially paying Offset to go away so he could be with Cardi B in peace. The football player paid your debt? Hey, Cardi B, huh? I'm going to wire you this $70 million for this crybaby. Get this guy out our business. He kept going in on Offset's masculinity, saying real street dudes don't act like that. What gangster owns another man's son? He asked, referring to Offset claiming the baby as his since he's still legally married to Cardi B. That's Stephon Diggs' son, not yours. That man put in the work for that baby, not you. That's Stephon Diggs' son. That ain't your son. That's that man's son. You all on here talking about that's your son. That ain't your wife no more. That man took your wife, Finesse 2 Times continued, really driving the point home. The whole situation really shows how Offset's personal life has become public entertainment, and his fall off is definitely going to be studied. Here's a man who was part of one of the biggest rap groups of the 2010s, and now he's getting clowned by other rappers about his wife leaving him for an NFL player. That's a tough pill to swallow. What makes Offset's situation even more painful is the public nature of it all. Most people going through relationship problems can handle it privately, but when you're a celebrity, everything becomes content for other people. Every detail of his marriage falling apart, every court document, every new development with Cardi B and Stephon Diggs, it's all public knowledge. Finesse 2 Times wasn't done though. He kept emphasizing that he's not the one Offset should have problems with. I just said something about the situation. I didn't take your wife. I didn't get her pregnant. That was all Stephon Diggs. All I said was that the football was sticking in a hole, man. You ain't say nothing when Pooh Shiesty shot his shot at your hoe. You don't say nothing to him, but you feel like you can say something to me? Finesse 2 Times explained his position. The beef really highlights how personal situations can spill over into the rap game. Offset is clearly going through it emotionally, dealing with his marriage falling apart and another man raising what might legally be considered his child. That's enough to drive anybody crazy. But Finesse 2 Times wasn't showing no sympathy. He kept pressing Offset about being soft and not handling his business properly. You can't even lift 40 pounds, he said, really going in on Offset's physical capabilities. Your security can't even lift 40 pounds, you a bitch. The Memphis rapper also brought up Offset's legal troubles, saying he goes to jail for small charges while he goes to jail for serious crimes. You go to jail for carrying guns, man. I go to jail for discharging them, Finesse 2 Times said, trying to establish his street credibility over Offset's. This comparison was particularly cutting because it played into the narrative that Offset is all image and no substance. While Finesse 2 Times is getting locked up for serious violent crimes, Offset is catching minor charges that don't really establish any street credibility. The whole situation is wild because it shows how social media can escalate beefs quickly. What started as some jokes on Instagram Live turned into serious threats and a full-blown feud. Both men are now talking about violence and making it clear they're not backing down. Finesse 2 Times made it clear he's not worried about Offset's threats. I just got out of jail, homie. You want to spin on me? Spin on the football player instead. He was basically saying Offset is barking up the wrong tree. The Memphis rapper also brought up how Offset blocked him on social media after making threats. How you gonna talk crazy about me and then block me? I can't even see what you're saying. I gotta go to the blogs to see what you said. You blocked me from Suga's page. You blocked me from Clever's page. You blocked the whole family page. You blocked Little Jew, No Love, Mama P. You blocked everybody. You mad at everybody, man. You a real hoe-ass boy, Finesse 2 Times said, calling out Offset for blocking people instead of handling the situation directly. This blocking behavior really played into Finesse 2 Times' narrative that Offset is soft and can't handle confrontation. In street culture, blocking someone after talking tough is seen as weak behavior. What's really interesting about this whole beef is how it exposes the different approaches to conflict resolution in hip-hop. Offset, coming from the more commercial side of rap, tried to handle things through legal channels and social media posts. Finesse 2 Times, representing that raw street rap, was ready to get physical immediately. The cultural implications of this beef run deep too. Offset's situation with Cardi B and Stephon Diggs touches on some sensitive topics in the black community about masculinity, relationships, and public humiliation. The fact that another man took his wife and got her pregnant while they were still married is the kind of situation that can destroy a man's reputation in certain circles. Finesse 2 Times was capitalizing on all of this, using Offset's pain as content and entertainment. He wasn't just beefing with Offset, he was making an example of him, showing what happens when you let another man take what's yours. The Memphis rapper also brought up Offset's spending habits, talking about how he buys expensive jewelry instead of handling his real problems. You ain't going to do nothing but go buy a chrome hard belt for $79,000. You might as well let your baby mama keep it. You ain't going to go do nothing. This was another shot at Offset's priorities, suggesting that he's more focused on material possessions than actually addressing his real issues. It's a common criticism of mainstream rappers, that they're all flash and no substance. This whole beef is messy, and it's clear both men are serious about their threats. Offset is dealing with one of the most embarrassing situations a man can go through: his wife leaving him for another man and having that man's baby. Meanwhile, Finesse 2 Times is capitalizing on that pain and turning it into content. The situation really shows how Offset's fall from grace is happening in real time. From being part of Migos to dealing with this public humiliation, it's a cautionary tale about how quickly things can change in the entertainment industry. His whole image as a successful rapper is being overshadowed by his personal problems. What makes this even more interesting is the street politics involved. Finesse 2 Times is affiliated with certain Memphis crews, while Offset has his Atlanta connections. This beef could potentially involve more people than just these two rappers. The timing of this beef is also significant. Offset is at a vulnerable point in his life, dealing with divorce proceedings, custody issues, and public embarrassment. Finesse 2 Times saw this vulnerability and decided to exploit it for his own gain. Y'all think this beef is going to escalate further, or will cooler heads prevail? Let me know in the comments, because this situation is far from over, and both these men seem ready for whatever comes next. This type of beef rarely stays just on social media, and with the threats being made, things could get real dangerous real quick.
When them bitch they were popping, they were popping. Now we popping, you hear me? It's a problem. Say five, this $100 million shit going on. We ain't going back and forth with no nigga, no bitch. And I still got the same color.
Yo, what's good, gang? Your boy back with another one, and today we diving deep into some real street shit. We talking about Pooh Shiesty straight up dissing NBA YoungBoy on stream, and how 4KT members responded to this whole situation. This ain't just regular rap beef, shorty. This shit just might have got real. Before we get into this current drama, let me put y'all on game about where Pooh Shiesty really came from, so y'all know he ain't none to be played with. This Memphis rapper ain't just some industry plant. Homie been on that timing since day one. Pooh Shiesty, real name Lontrell Williams, grew up in the Cane Creek apartments in South Memphis, just 15 minutes from where legends like Young Dolph and Yo Gotti came up. But Shiesty's story different, gang. See, Shiesty followed in his pop's footsteps, and his father was a known gangster who founded the record label Mob Ties back in 2006. His pops was really in them streets, got convicted for being an accessory in the murder of a local female DJ, which put him on supervised parole. Even with the law breathing down his neck, Shiesty's father was still hustling from a trap house on Porter Street that looked abandoned but was really a major operation. One day, Memphis police busted down that spot after months of surveillance. They found measuring cups by the stove, digital scales on the kitchen counter, 12.5 grams of coke, 8 pounds of kush, and $10,000 cash in Shiesty's father's left pocket. That's the environment Shiesty grew up in. Real street shit, no fake gangster rap. With his pops in and out doing Fed bids, young Shiesty was running around as a badass little kid, jumping people and finessing folks. That's how he got the name Shiesty, because he was always on some scheming type shit. By high school, Shiesty had expanded his circle, clicking up with his childhood friend Big 30 from Whitehaven, plus Little Hank, Antwop, and a few others. Together, they came up with the name Choppa Gang, and that shit stuck. Now let me tell y'all about Big 30, because this YN been locked in with Shiesty since day one. Big 30 was actually getting tens of millions of streams a month and got signed to a deal way before Shiesty did. But loyalty runs deep with these Memphis boys. Big 30 got booked 2 weeks before Shiesty did on felony drug charges in Alabama, got extradited back to Memphis for another case he was already fighting, made bond, and dropped first day out. That's the type of real ones Shiesty surrounds himself with. But Choppa Gang ain't just some rap group. These boys really about that life. Chopper Gang Hank got locked up for attempted murder, allegedly shot up a car and paralyzed someone in a bad case of mistaken identity. Another member caught a murder in 2 attempts. Now here's where shit gets real for Shiesty. In 2021, while his career was taking off and Back in Blood with Lil Durk was climbing the charts, Shiesty got caught up in some serious federal charges.
The barrage of bullets sending 2 people to the hospital, and it lands a rapper in jail.
Police and prosecutors said Shiesty was part of a group that ended up in a parking lot shootout in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. And this happened right across the street from the police department and town hall. The case involved Shiesty allegedly robbing someone in Miami who was trying to sell him some That Loud pack and some Jordans. They said he stuck 2 shooters on the guy, sent him to the hospital, escaped in a green McLaren, got arrested, bonded out, and left the state in a private jet. That's some real movie type shit, but the feds don't play when it comes to interstate crimes and firearms. Shiesty ended up taking a plea deal and got sentenced to federal prison. During this time, most of the industry forgot about him. Artists he thought was cool with him stopped mentioning his name, stopped posting about him, stopped showing support. But there was one person who never forgot, Lil Durk. This is where the real loyalty comes in, and why Shiesty picking sides the way he is. When Shiesty got locked up on them federal charges, Durk was damn near the only rapper from the industry consistently checking up on him and sending him money. Every show, every interview, Durk would mention Shiesty. He kept yelling "Free Pooh Shiesty" when he was on stage, keeping his name alive when everybody else moved on.
We gotta do this shit one time for our little bro Shiesty one time, right? When I say free, I want y'all to say Shiesty. Free! Free!
For y'all who might not understand the street politics behind this, let me explain. When you're locked up, especially on federal charges, most people in the industry will distance themselves from you. They don't want that association because the feds be watching everything, and artists know that showing too much support for someone facing federal charges can bring unwanted attention to their own operations. But Durk kept Shiesty's name in his mouth, kept him relevant, kept hope alive for his fans. That type of loyalty is rare in this industry where people will drop you the moment you become a liability. So when Shiesty got out, he wasn't just grateful. He was locked in for life with OTF and everything Durk represents. Now, let's get to the main event that got everybody talking. Shiesty was on Ben the Don's stream, just chilling, taking pictures with fans, and chopping it up when some real industry drama started bubbling to the surface. During the stream, there was this moment that showed exactly where Shiesty's loyalty lies. A female fan walked up to get a picture, and Shiesty asked who her favorite rapper was.
Films with that fire gift, bro. I appreciate you.
OTF, what is you talking about? Why you say it like that for? Come on, get your picture, man, before you get beat up.
Oh, wait, my phone.
Shorty said she don't mess with Lil Durk, basically letting him know she wasn't rocking with his boy. Y'all should have seen Shiesty's face change. Homie went from being cool and laid back to showing real emotion, real anger. That comment hit different because of how tight him and Durk really are. Shiesty got so heated he almost crashed out on this girl right there on stream. You could see it in his eyes. That wasn't just some casual fan interaction. This was personal. When that girl said she don't rock with Durk, Shiesty's whole energy shifted because he knows what Durk did for him when he was at his lowest point. But the real moment that showed where Shiesty's head is at happened when streamer Rakai called Ben during the stream. Rakai, trying to be funny or whatever, told Shiesty, "I'm 4KT, that's NBA Youngboy's crew." Now here's the crazy part. Shiesty acted like he didn't know what that meant. "I'm 4K Trey. Who?" Shiesty said, playing completely dumb.
I'm 4K Trey.
Who?
Rakai, what the f, man?
You just said it. You said what?
You could hang up on him, cuz. Ain't no shit.
But fam, we all know he knew exactly what Rakai was talking about. 4KT is NBA Youngboy's crew, and everybody in the rap game knows what that stands for. Shiesty playing dumb wasn't about not knowing, it was about not wanting to acknowledge anything connected to NBA Youngboy's camp. That type of disrespect is deeper than just ignoring someone. That's complete dismissal. Now, NBA Youngboy's Crash Dummies wasn't about to let that slide. One of his 4KT members put out a video exposing Shiesty for being a Youngboy fan while he was in prison. They pulled up old footage from a podcast Shiesty did while locked up, where he was asked what music he'd been listening to. NBA Youngboy, Shiesty said, clear as day. They drop an album every day on the tablet. I listen to that every day.
You know what I'm saying? Then NBA Youngboy, then I drop something on this motherfucker every day.
Damn, on the
That
tablet?
man, they drop an album every day on the tablet.
This clip went viral quick, with 4KT members clowning Shiesty for acting like he don't know who Youngboy is when he was literally bumping his music every day in prison. The caption read, "I understand, Pooh. You wanted to be NBA but chose the wrong side on accident. Just imagine you could have been one of them ones." That's some real petty shit right there, but it shows how deep this beef really goes. It ain't just about music, it's about respect, loyalty, and choosing sides in a war that's been going on for years. Now let me break down for y'all why Shiesty made this choice, because it goes deeper than just industry politics. When you're as close to Lil Durk as Shiesty is, you automatically inherit those problems. That's just how the game works, no cap. The Chicago and Louisiana beef between Durk and Youngboy goes way back, but it got personal when it started involving people who died in the streets.
Post, every song, every comment gets analyzed by fans and enemies alike. When you're loyal to one side, you can't be neutral with the other.
But for Shiesty, this ain't just about picking sides randomly. Him and Durk was tight like family. They would go to each other's hoods, which in the street world means you're really family. That's not something you do with just anybody. When you're comfortable enough to pull up to someone's block, that's real trust and real loyalty. Think about it. In the streets, your hood is everything. That's where you grew up, where your people at, where you learned the game. When you let someone from another city come through your hood and feel comfortable, that's saying, this person is family, this person is trusted, this person got my back no matter what. The real kicker is what happened when Shiesty was locked up. While most of the industry forgot about him, Durk was consistently the most supportive person, always yelling "Free Pooh Shiesty," keeping his name alive, making sure his family was straight. That type of loyalty creates a bond that goes beyond music. But yo, let's keep it 100. This beef is dangerous for everyone involved. NBA Youngboy got his own loyal crew, and they don't play about disrespect either. When you start throwing shots at YB, you're not just beefing with one person, you're beefing with a whole movement. 4KT got members all over Louisiana, and they ride hard for their leader. YB fans are some of the most loyal and aggressive fans in hip-hop. They will come for anyone who disrespects their favorite artist, and they don't just talk, they take action. Shiesty probably knows this could affect his career, but he chose loyalty over potential success. The crazy part is Shiesty and NBA Youngboy probably never had direct problems, but because of the Durk situation, they're automatically enemies. Sometimes being loyal to one person means you automatically got to have problems with someone else, even if you never had personal issues with them. The Memphis connection makes it even more complicated because Shiesty represents a third culture in this mix. Memphis got its own way of moving, its own code of ethics, its own approach to loyalty. But Shiesty chose to align himself with Chicago through his relationship with Durk. At the end of the day, Shiesty's situation isn't just about choosing sides in rap beef. It's about loyalty, gratitude, and understanding that in this game, your relationships define your enemies as much as your friends. When Durk held Shiesty down during his darkest period, that created a bond that goes beyond music. This beef is far from over, and with both sides having real street credibility and loyal fan bases, things could get real interesting real quick. Remember fam, loyalty is everything in this game, but sometimes that loyalty comes with a price. Shiesty is paying that price right now, and only time will tell if it was worth it. What y'all think about this whole situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you think Shiesty made the right choice. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more hip-hop drama and street politics. This is your boy signing off. Stay dangerous, gang.